Chapter 983. I didn't just see you, I slept with you. Do you know that? With Bojio's unrestrained personality, she would have said it a long time ago if she hadn't been worried. Bojio was afraid she would say too much at the mention of their childhood. She tilted her head and pretended to tidy her sleeves. Her silver hair fell down, concealing her expression. No. Is that so? Chin Mo watched the youngster, a hint of a smile on his face as he brushed her fringe. No? Why are you so depressed? It seems like you wish we had met when we were younger. Bojio didn't know how to reply. She wanted him to remember her if he could, but she was also worried that the Almighty would recall something and expose her. What a worrisome world. Why are you getting more depressed? Chin Mo glanced at her, his lips curved upwards as he reached out to caress her furry head. Bojio glanced up, giving him 5 words. Baby, don't speak. Chin Mo. Bow. Bay? Young Master Chin narrowed his eyes. What kind of a dress was that? Bojio loved watching the Almighty wake up. Noble, restrained, and alluring. Especially when he was in his uniform, looking like a grown-up puppy. She had to touch the face of something she liked. Since young, she had had this habit. In the past, she would touch it. Today wasn't the same. For some reason, Chin Mo seemed more and more similar to his younger self. After she was done, Bojio turned and continued to tidy her clothes. That set of flirting moves was done very smoothly. Chin Mo arched a brow, tilting his head as though he was breaking into a laugh. How exactly did he fall for such a gangster? Bojio didn't know what he was thinking about. After taking advantage of the Almighty, she felt refreshed. It wasn't a long time from the Chin family's house to the club. The moment they boarded the Land Rover, Chin Mo opened his ultra-thin laptop and opened the hero icon on the screen. Then he turned towards the youngster. Log into your game account. Hers? Bojio didn't know what the Almighty was planning, but she took the laptop over. Her fingers moved swiftly and she logged in within a second. But before she could enter the city, a notification popped up. Your friend, Chin Mo, has gifted you a weapon. Weapon? Bojio glanced up at the Almighty. Open it. Chin Mo's voice was calm. She was reminded of the gold and diamonds he had given her when she had first met him. As expected, the world of the rich was so straightforward. The weapon given by the Almighty was definitely not inferior. Bojio smiled faintly and accepted. A white dragon spear appeared in her hands instantly. The entire body of the spear was emitting a silver glow. If it wasn't made of special materials, it wouldn't be possible to have such an effect. Moreover, it didn't look like it was sold in the game store. Could it be self-made? Bojio's eyes lit up. She clicked on the attributes of the spear. It had a blood drinker pierce attack and was very light in the hand. Most importantly, it had a critical hit. Such a spear was simply a weapon specially made for assassins. You will be in charge of today's competition. Chin Mo looked at the youngster, his eyes as deep as the sea. Bojio frowned. She wanted to ask why he wasn't the one leading. Wasn't Xiangnan's captain their archenemy? They even formed a couple. Archenemies formed a couple. If she had the chance, she would have to educate her fans that they shouldn't form a couple so casually. Unfortunately, before she could speak, the Almighty reached out and tapped the time on the laptop screen. His voice was calm. You have 15 minutes to familiarize yourself with the weapon. Head to the training ground. Why would I go to the training ground now? Bojio bit on her lollipop, looking up devilishly. Even if I want to go, I have to go to the arena. The FC King of Zone C wasn't just for show. Bojio hid her team's ID. She started a random 5-on-5 match. The system automatically assigned the players to the team. Ever since Bojio became popular, there had been many Spade Z circles, Spade Z Gio, Spade J, or Spade Q in the game. Hence, when Bojio entered, her teammates didn't think she was real. They wanted her to choose a tank. But they didn't force her to choose. They just felt that it would be difficult without a tank. 2 assassins weren't enough to kill in the wilderness. Hence, the game started. Her teammates sent a message. "Let's fight steadily." "All right. No problem." But just as the others were replying, Bojio controlled her character and swept across the wilderness. But just as the others replied, Bojio controlled her character and swept across the wilderness. This time, she didn't go to the wilderness to familiarize herself with the weapon. First, she brought a wave of minions. Then she jumped. When she saw that the opponent was almost done with the blue beasts, she used her big move and successfully stole the kill. The opponent started cursing. F***ck, surround him. It had to be said that the opponent wasn't bad. The moment Bojio went to the wilderness, the sorcerer and the bottom lane immediately supported her. The 3 of them trapped Bojio in the middle. At this moment, Bojio paused in the bushes. When she used her big move, she used another move and jumped over the tower. When she reached the red beasts, her eyes lit up. "Brother Mo, this gun kills the beasts quickly." Killing beasts quickly meant that her attack was strong. In addition, she had the ability to drink blood. Bojio, who had been at half HP, was back to full HP after killing the opponent's wilderness. At this moment, the other 3 chased after her, scolding, "The opponent, aren't you shameless? What's so shameless about stealing the kill?" Bojio didn't forget to type as she danced. This was her usual style of gaming. This is a strategy. F***ck your strategy. After the explosion, they sprinted over but they couldn't even see her. Where is she? Beside her. No one knew who shouted. Then, he heard a sound coming from the game. KO. First kill. After Bojio's HP was full, she turned and used a big move to kill the opponent's main attacker. Then, she used 3 moves to jump over the wall and return to her own wilderness. Her teammates were dumbfounded. She killed someone so quickly? That wasn't the end. After a wave of beasts, she moved to the bottom lane and another KO. This. She was leading the way so quickly? Everyone was in a daze. It was a 5v5. After 5 minutes, the opponent felt that there was nothing left for him to live for. It was a 10-2 loss. He was pushed out of the city and decided to take a headshot. The youngster looked at the victory sign on the screen. She lifted her head and smiled. Brother Mo, this spear isn't bad. More importantly, the person using it is handsome. Even the spear looks valiant. Chin Mo didn't reply. He reached out and pinched the youngster's face. His thin lips were arched upwards. It was a beautiful sight. But the playfulness in his eyes was still there. It seemed to be saying, "Why are you so thick-skinned?" Bojio didn't reply. She liked the gift the Almighty had given her. She looked left and right and clicked on the white dragon spear's attributes. She looked at it for about 3 minutes before keeping it. Bojio was smart. She could guess the time the spear had been made. She had seen the Almighty's videos in the past. At that time, the Almighty had used this white dragon spear. It was because she knew how handsome he had been back then. His nimble movements. His explosive attacks. No one dared to get close to the silver spear. That was the real Chin Mo. Now, the spear was in her hands. She couldn't embarrass herself. It was time to win back all the pride she had lost. The National League. It was being broadcasted online and offline. The number of fans wasn't any lesser than when a superstar held a concert. Even before the contestants entered the stadium, there were more than 10 media outlets at the scene. This time, the 3-dimensional LCD screen was not only on the inside of the arena, but also on the largest advertising space in the square. It was broadcasting this match. Needless to say, it was being broadcasted live in all the internet cafes. For everyone who played the game. It was a grand occasion. Melon seeds, peanuts, cola, and chips were prepared. Everyone stopped playing and looked at the screen hanging in the middle of the internet cafes. The bustling scene wasn't inferior to the World Cup in the past. There were waves of topics on Weibo. It could be said that today, there wasn't anyone more popular than the word Supreme Alliance of Xiangnan. Now, many people understood that esports was similar to other sports. Indomitable and never giving up. That was the spirit of esports. The two shoutcasters were already in place. This time, the shoutcasters were experienced in international esports. As they sat there, the fans in the stadium stretched their necks. They knew that once the shoutcasters were in place, it would be time for the players to enter the stadium. Prepare for the crew. The director stood at the back and gestured to all the cameramen. The shoutcasters wore their headphones. The staff adjusted the volume. The tense atmosphere was about to explode. In the lounge, Qin Mo stood up, his deep gaze sweeping across everyone. He didn't ask if they were ready. Instead, he stretched out his right hand. Supreme Alliance. Victory. The voice came from their chests. Everyone had been preparing for this match for a long time. It was so long that they would recall the days when they sat in front of the computer, their necks and shoulders aching, but they would just move a little before returning back to the game. Just to practice their positioning. There would be waves in their hearts. What they couldn't forget was the failure of every match. The kind of failure where their throats were blocked and they couldn't say a word. It wasn't because they had lost. But when they saw the arrogant person beside them lowering his head and clenching his fists unwillingly, their hearts would clench. They wanted to be number one. At that moment, they had an unparalleled desire to win. It was probably because if they won, they would be able to see the radiant smile of the person they cared about again. How they wished that the person they loved could maintain the appearance of a youngster forever. Even after going through so much, their original intentions wouldn't change. Perhaps this was the reason why they were so obsessed with winning. To leave the deepest memory in that person's life. His failure, you know. His glory, you will win together. Let's go. The two faint words brought a sharp gust of wind. Qin Mo was still at the front. When he walked out of the archway, all the lights were focused on him. The next moment, the other members of Supreme Alliance lined up and walked over. Their black uniforms, uniform badges, and their heaven-defying looks gave them an aura. Bo Jiu was the most outstanding. The fans of Spade were stunned when they saw their idol. They didn't know where the youngster found a black headband. She swept her silver hair back and tied it onto the headband, accentuating her exquisite features. She was as cool as a little prince. The girls lost control, their screams seemingly able to tear the roof apart. He looks so handsome with the headband. It probably isn't because of his looks, but because his hair doesn't cover his eyes when he is gaming. The effects aren't important, don't you think he's so handsome? The enthusiastic response made the cameraman take a shot of the youngster. He was indeed handsome. The esports players of this year were really impactful. Next, let's welcome the ace team that has been the national champion for 3 consecutive years, Xiangnan. When the host said the 2 words, Xiangnan, an even louder cheer came from the audience. The lights gathered and there were countless spots of light. Xiao Jing walked out from the other archway with his team. Beauty Luo and Zhao Sanpeng stood on his left and right. Not to mention the fact that any one of them was a top-tier player. Some wore spectacles, some were silent. But it was undeniable. The aura that Xiangnan brought out was always different, it wouldn't be replaced by any other team. Perhaps this was the existence of the champion team, they wouldn't be defeated by their looks. For example, Zhao Sanpeng, the sight of him carrying his keyboard was enough to make one's blood boil. Xiangnan. Zhao Sanpeng picked up his keyboard, waving his arm. The crowd cheered instantly. Victory. It was the power of the fans that shook the earth. It was obvious that both Shui Yaoyao and Feng Shang had never seen such a scene before. After hearing the audience's voices, they couldn't help but turn their heads to look over. Feng Yi looked at them, not bothering to hide Xiangnan's strength. This is Xiangnan, you have to get used to their popularity and forget about the voices before you can think about how to compete. You have seen the matches between Xiangnan and the other teams, the 1v1 is used by them to groom the newcomers. In the past few matches, they didn't even use their strongest formation. You have to force them to use their strongest formation for this match to truly begin. Bo Jiao picked up the mineral water, tilted her head back and took a sip. She asked, 1v1 for newbies? Who should we send? We'll send a newcomer too. Qin Mo said faintly, Feng Shang. Feng Shang stilled, his fingers trembling slightly, but he didn't panic. A month ago, his captain had spoken to him. They had just entered the regional competition. Chapter 984. At that moment, he hadn't dared to believe what he had heard. His eyes widened and he didn't even stutter. Xiangnan? This is just the first match, if it's Xiangnan. Will we meet? This was what Feng Shang had wanted to say, but before he could finish his sentence, the captain interrupted him calmly. We will meet. 5 words, spoken so casually but unwaveringly. If it had been anyone else, they would have felt that the regional competition had just started. How confident would they be able to predict that they would meet the national champion team? But the person in front of him wasn't anyone else, it was Qin Mo. He had become an almighty at a young age, killed 3 people alone and crushed Qin Mo in the middle of the city. Then I'll play. Feng Shang knew how crazy he had agreed to something. But it was this crazy thing that gave him an endless drive. He stayed in the internet cafe more often than at home. The uncle watched as he practiced his assassin character, smoking a cigarette. If you want to play a 1v1, you have to familiarize yourself with the wilderness first. But you have your own reasons for this, those who started playing in the wilderness are all suited to be assassins. Do you know why? Feng Shang shook his head. Familiarity, intuition, experience, and judgment. The uncle watched him, flicking the cigarette ash. A team can have many trump cards. It seems like the person who asked you to be an assassin believes that you will become a trump card in the near future. As for who that person was, both of them knew it. Feng Yi was the only one who didn't know about it. When he heard Feng Shang's name, he was about to speak. Bo Jiao reached out and placed her arm on his shoulder. She smiled and said, Manager Feng, as a brother Khan, you should let go at the right time. Since Brother Mo mentioned it, it shouldn't be a problem, right? Other than Qin Mo, Feng Yi was the only one in the team who knew her identity. He glanced over at young Master Qin instinctively. As expected, his gaze was cold. Feng Yi took a step back, caressing his head. I need to go to the toilet. His assistant widened his eyes. But Boss Feng, you are the manager and we don't have a coach. You have to stay behind. F***CK. Can't you see that I'm nervous? Now, Feng Yi's mind was filled with thoughts of his brother going up on stage and having a 1v1 with the opponent. He really couldn't relax. She wasn't wrong to say that he had a brother complex. They're here. Yunhu's words made all the team members turn towards the special guest. Zhao Sanpang also had a smug look on his face. Japanese? He must have come to watch the competition in advance to guard against me. What are you talking about? Are you fat? Beauty Luo stepped on him, her long legs beautiful. My little spade is so handsome today, I want to take a photo with you, what should I do? Hey, miss, the person you're praising is our enemy. You're so good for nothing. Lord Fatty's words were filled with disappointment. Beauty Luo tucked her long hair behind her ears, a beautiful smile on her face. Let's take a screenshot of Little Spade's corpse after we defeat him. If you love him, let him remember me. When Lord Fatty heard this, he shuddered violently. Indeed, women were the most vicious. The two teams weren't far from each other. When Bo Jiao heard this, she placed the bottle of mineral water down and smiled at Beauty Luo, a hint of mischief in her smile. That smile melted Beauty Luo's heart. She turned towards her captain. Let's poach little Spade over, he can be our mascot. I can't. Xiao Jing glanced at Hoshino and Yu Cixin, who were seated. Beauty Luo arched a brow. Why? Is it expensive? That's easy, I can provide some savings, I'm quite rich. Because Qin Mo won't let go. This reason. Beauty Luo was convinced. She turned towards the silver-haired youngster who was whispering into Qin Mo's ear, feeling as though a good cabbage had been stolen by a pig. It seemed like the appearance of the Japanese wasn't as dazzling as her almighty. But it was different for the audience. The screams rose by a few decibels. What did I just see? Hoshino and Xian. I heard rumors that the Japanese would be the special guests. Even though I was mentally prepared, I never expected the two of them to appear. Gosh. They are the world champions. Godly maneuvers, devilish face, Yu Cixin. When the words left his mouth. The host of the live stream interviewed the analysis expert on Weibo. This time, the Japanese specially sent two godly players to watch the National League. Why do you think so? The person laughed lightly. It's simple, it's for Xiangnan. This year, Xiangnan has recruited many talented players and the Japanese want to see how strong they are. You are wrong, based on what I know, players like Hoshino and Yu Cixin won't listen to anyone's orders. Rather than saying that they were sent, it would be more accurate to say that they wanted to watch. This proves that Xiangnan is indeed strong. What do you think of Supreme Alliance? Indeed, Supreme Alliance is a dark horse, but I think the problem Supreme Alliance faces now is the 1v1. They have to play beautifully to force out Xiangnan's strongest formation. If Xiangnan's strongest formation doesn't appear, it means that the competition hasn't even started. Does that mean the first match is important? Then it should be Spade Z or north of Een Mountain. After all, these two players are very outstanding in individual battles, especially Spade Z. With the abilities of the newcomer king, he should be able to play the first match beautifully. What do you think? The moment the host finished speaking, a name appeared on the screen belonging to Supreme Alliance. Feng Shang. In that instant, many frowned, glancing over to ask, who is Feng Shang? They couldn't be blamed for not knowing. Only those who frequented Zone C knew Feng Shang. As for the others, they hadn't noticed him. In the past competitions, Feng Shang had always participated as a newbie and didn't have much of a presence. Hence, when he was singled out, there were doubts. Under these gazes, Feng Shang clenched his fists and stood up from his seat. Dressed in his combat uniform, he walked to the center of the room and reached out to take off his black headset. Shui Yaoyao looked at his back view, and her heart felt like it was filled with something. Because she knew that Feng Shang was the same type of person as her. In the past, they had been afraid of everything in this world, as ordinary as they could be. Now, Feng Shang was able to sit firmly under such gazes, lifting his lids to give her a smile. Chapter 985. The player from the Xiangnan team glanced at Feng Shang. From that glance, it was obvious that he didn't view Feng Shang as an important opponent. He had to admit that Supreme Alliance was strong, which was why he had trained for so long just for this match. But he hadn't expected Supreme Alliance to send a newcomer. The player's eyes dimmed. He placed his fingers on the keyboard and logged into his ID. Following the sound of the game's sound effects, both of their IDs appeared on all the screens. The finals had finally begun. At the start, the camera was focused on the Xiangnan player's point of view. Alright, we can see that both players are assassins. There's nothing wrong with that. In professional battles, most players will use assassins in 1v1s. Let's see which team's rookie is stronger this round. Yes, Supreme Alliance is starting to farm. Xiangnan. The shoutcaster paused. He moved his mouse up and broke into a smile. Are they going to raid? Everyone looked towards the Xiangnan team when they heard the word ambush. Following the movement of their gazes landed on that figure and they couldn't help but hold their breaths. The contestants wearing headphones couldn't see or hear the sounds around them. This was fair for the competition. Shui Yaoyao watched as the figure approached Feng Shang. She clenched her fists anxiously. Compared to Shui Yaoyao, Bojiu arched a brow but didn't say a word. It seems like Supreme Alliance's blue beast is going to be snatched away. The shoutcaster's tone was filled with regret. This was the National League after all. This shouldn't be the standard. Feng Shang, on the other hand, was still busy killing monsters. He didn't notice that danger was nearby, either because he was nervous or something else. The opponent didn't hold back. With a wild punishment, he successfully snatched away Supreme Alliance's blue beast. Next, he leaped towards the middle lane and wiped out a wave of troops. Feng Shang couldn't keep up with the opponent's rhythm. He had to give up and clear the troops. After all, the main mission of the game was to defend the tower. This scene made the audience very disappointed. Supreme Alliance's assassins are too weak. Those who come from the wilderness probably aren't that daring. They probably didn't expect Xiangnan to rebel. It's so boring. He's still guarding the tower and Xiangnan has taken down his red monster. If this goes on, it'll be a one-sided massacre. That's for sure. Assassins don't have any wild monsters to kill, so what's the point of playing? Their mana consumption is so fast, but they haven't even killed their own blue monsters yet. There's no point in watching this match anymore. The assistant listened to the commotion and turned to look at Vice President Feng. He had thought that Vice President Feng, who was obsessed with his younger brother, would be angry. But now, he just stood there, looking at Feng Shang, who was wearing headphones. Feng Shang wasn't like this when he was young. His stuttering was not innate, but rather, it was caused by a kidnapping. It was also his fault. At that time, Feng Shang liked to play behind him. He was already 6 years old and definitely wouldn't bring a 3-year-old child along. Hence, he purposely walked quickly and didn't want to bring him along. In the end, when he turned back, Feng Yi realized that his brother was missing. If the bodyguards hadn't noticed in time, Feng Shang would have been carried away by the middle-aged man. They were the ones who stopped him at the subway entrance. At that time, Feng Shang was crying so hard that he couldn't catch his breath. It was obvious that he had been frightened, which was how he spoke. Hence, everyone said that Feng Yi was obsessed with his younger brother. Even though Feng Yi was in charge of the Feng family, the final successor was Feng Shang. After Feng Yi came of age, he had voluntarily transferred all his shares to his younger brother. No one knew that year, the middle-aged man had wanted to carry Feng Yi away. He had followed Feng Yi for 3 days straight and was ready to buy a good price. In the end, he had been stopped by little Feng Shang. Only Feng Yi knew. Feng Shang had told him that there was an uncle he was afraid of. His brother didn't want him to go out, but Feng Shang had found him annoying. An hour had passed thanks to the clues provided by the kind-hearted person. Feng Yi didn't know what Feng Shang had experienced in that hour. In order to keep him quiet, the human trafficker had pinched his arm until it was red. At that time, Feng Shang had hugged him and repeated, "Brother, don't go out by yourself." The guilt in Feng Yi's heart hadn't dissipated. He had watched as Feng Shang grew up. Because of his words, he didn't have any friends and had even lost all his courage. Even now, he sat there in Supreme Alliance's uniform. Even though he was so nervous that his movements weren't nimble, he didn't seem to have any intention of retreating. Shui Yaoyao wanted to speak. Bojiu pressed down on her shoulders, placing a slender finger on her lips, gesturing for her to keep quiet. Feng Shang was still moving his mouse to clear the troops on the top lane. Since there wasn't anyone guarding this side, the 2 waves of troops he brought over pushed down the defense tower. But everyone's attention was focused on the Xiangnan players. No one noticed what Feng Shang was doing. On the other hand, the Xiangnan player noticed it. He smiled, not taking Feng Shang seriously. He darted over, wanting to seize the opportunity to capture him. Unexpectedly, after hiding in the bushes for about 10 seconds, Feng Shang still hadn't appeared. When he opened the map, he realized that he had gone to the bottom lane and was killing troops. The defense tower at the bottom lane was about to be taken down. The Xiangnan player frowned, heading towards the bottom lane. He didn't believe that he wouldn't be able to capture someone who couldn't even protect the beasts. But the same thing happened again. After hiding in the bushes for 6 seconds, Feng Shang wasn't able to head over. When he appeared again, he was already in the middle lane. It's a pity he didn't manage to capture him. That was the view of the audience. From their perspective, Feng Shang's fighting style was a little clumsy. But from Bojio's perspective, it was completely different. She lifted her thin lips, placing her arm over his shoulder. "Brother Mo, you were the one who taught baby Feng this move." "Which move?" Qin Mo tilted his head. Up close, he looked indescribably noble. Bojio felt an itch in her hands, but she had to endure it. She revealed her canine teeth and smiled faintly. "Brother Mo, be honest. His fighting style is so complicated, it's obviously yours." "Is that a compliment?" Qin Mo watched her mischievous claws. After suppressing them, he replied calmly, "It's not me. Feng Shang has been playing in the wilderness for a long time, he definitely has this level of scheming." Bojio arched a brow. "Are you complimenting baby Feng?" The word scheming was used well, it didn't seem like a compliment. "MMH?" The Almighty didn't give a precise answer. His MMH left her speechless. Bojio placed her hands behind her head, a lollipop dangling from her mouth. The Xiangnan player probably hasn't realized that baby Feng is leading him around the field. He isn't clearing troops. Qin Mo chuckled, caressing the youngster's fluffy head. He lowered his voice. "You're smart. I'm even more handsome." Bojio replied in a carefree manner. Talent and looks coexist. Lin Feng only wanted to change his seat as he listened. This was the National League. "Captain, what was going on with you and Little Spade? How could you be so lovey-dovey in such a serious situation? Besides, he had just broken up with Hu Zi." No, they had just made things clear. Hu Zi hadn't spoken a single word to him today. Even the mineral water he was drinking wasn't the one he had given him. With that thought, Lin Feng's arrogance subsided. It was better not to change seats. If he sat beside Hu Zi, he would definitely be treated coldly. But from what Captain and Little Spade said, Feng Shang had a higher chance of winning. He would have to take a good look. Lin Feng didn't like to see his teammates lose. He liked to see his teammates setting traps. Gaming was really a competition to see who had more scheming. However, some of the spectators who weren't sensitive to data couldn't see it. In their eyes, Feng Shang's rhythm was too slow. He only knew how to lead troops. He didn't know how to control the assassin character. The assassin had to roam the wilderness. Actually, the spectators weren't wrong. If it was a team battle, the assassin would indeed have to roam the wilderness. But many people had forgotten that. This was a 1v1. Besides, this was a siege game. This time, he should be caught. Indeed, he was caught. The Xiangnan player had managed to bring Feng Shang down to critical health. His maneuvers were beautiful and his movements were swift. If Feng Shang hadn't returned to the tower in time to heal, he would have lost his first life. But at this moment, the Xiangnan player suddenly requested for an outside guidance. It wasn't Supreme Alliance but Xiangnan? The spectators couldn't believe the words that appeared on the screen. What's going on? Isn't the situation in Xiangnan doing well? They're just short of attacking Supreme Alliance. Why did they request for an outside guidance? I'm not sure. Everyone was confused. Why did he have to interrupt such a good rhythm? They weren't the only ones confused. Even the Xiangnan player couldn't understand why their captain had to interrupt him. But there was a type of person who was born to be a leader. Xiao Jing sat there. As the third generation of the Red Army, he exuded an aura that couldn't be ignored. His voice was calm, and after the call connected, he asked, "Do you know how many towers you have lost?" The Xiangnan player froze, glancing up at the map. The other party had already destroyed 2 of his towers, and now, half of the towers in the middle lane were gone. "Open the page and take a look at your finances." This was Xiao Jing's second sentence. The Xiangnan player switched swiftly. When he saw the string of numbers, he tightened his grip on the mouse. "He has much more than me. Do you know what to do?" Xiao Jing's voice was emotionless. The Xiangnan player replied immediately, "I underestimated him, Captain. My advantage is in taking the beasts. For the next match, I will clear the beasts and attack the tower at the same time. I won't be led around by him." Chapter 986. That was right, 3 years. How many 3 years were there in life? "I understand, Captain." That person moved his fingers, switching to a different page, heading to the bottom of the tower to clear the troops. Feng Shang realized that this person's strategy was different from before. It seemed like his strategy had been seen through. Xiangnan wasn't easy to deal with. Xiao Jing looks rather decent, but he's full of evil tricks. Baby Feng hasn't done anything yet. How did he discover it? Lin Feng reached out, watching as the person was about to fall into the trap. That was the logic of losing a prey that was already in his mouth. As mentioned before, the 2 teams weren't far apart. Xiao Jing and Zhao Sanpang heard Lin Feng's words. He turned his head and was about to argue. "Beauty Lin, if we are talking about evil tricks, it should be Qin Mo. Who taught your newcomer that trick?" "It's definitely Qin Mo. He. Help me tell him that in front of our captain, his tricks are useless." Lin Feng didn't hear anything but the word beauty. He pointed at Zhao Sanpang and laughed coldly. "Don't leave after the competition." Zhao Sanpang would definitely reply, "I'm so handsome, I'm not afraid of you." "Fine, I won't leave." Unexpectedly, Almighty Fatty harumphed. "I'm leaving, don't even think about beating me up." Bojo. This, Beauty Luo felt embarrassed when she heard their conversation. She held her forehead silently. They had been in the esports industry for a long time after all and were familiar with each other. Back then, Zhao Sanpang had indeed thought that Lin Feng was as beautiful as a fairy and had wanted to push his shoulders. In the end, he had been thrown over his shoulder, almost losing his life. But at this moment, they were still in the competition. Could their habit of quarreling be used in the competition? "If you're afraid, just say it." Young Master Lin leaned back. Zhao Sanpang stretched his neck. "Who's afraid? Come over now." There would be no end to this. Qin Mo was one of the members sitting in between them. He frowned and said faintly, "The camera is over here." The 2 of them instantly changed their posture. There was no need to talk about how upright Lin Feng was. Zhao Sanpang's serious expression as he caressed his chin. "MMH, the newcomer from Supreme Alliance isn't bad." Bojo. His expression changed too quickly. The existence of the camera was valuable. But the strongest was still the Almighty. Bojo glanced at the 2 Almighties who were still posing before turning back to the camera that wasn't moving. It couldn't be filming her. Since it wasn't moving, it was probably filming the shoutcaster. Indeed, they were filming the shoutcaster. After all, the audience didn't understand why Xiangnan suddenly requested for guidance. After the live commentator's explanation, the people's gazes on Feng Shang had clearly changed. Feng Yi heard the commentary as well. The corners of his mouth curled up, even his eyes were smiling. This was the first time the assistant had seen their Vice President Feng so young. Their Vice President Feng was known as the Smiling Prince. No matter what, no one could tell his true emotions. His fox-like personality was most suitable for dealing with people in the business world. But today, President Feng really smiled. The audience, who felt that the match was boring, held their breaths and looked at the screen. That was because Feng Shang's fighting style had changed. On the screen, the two assassins were like two gusts of wind, fighting in the wilderness. With a single shot, Feng Shang took half of Xiangnan's HP. That person didn't back down, following up with a big move. He retreated and jumped back to the tower, using a health pack to clear the soldiers. His speed was so fast that no one could catch him. The battle went on for more than 5 times. Each time, the two of them were evenly matched. The match, which was supposed to end in half an hour, had gone on for an hour. None of the players on the screen had died and the number of defense towers hadn't changed. Everyone watching felt like their eyes were having a hard time, not to mention the players who were constantly switching pages and maps. To be able to reach this stage wasn't just a test of survival, it was also a test of the map. In other words, during the battle, they had to constantly pay attention to the soldiers on other routes, eliminating them before they reached the tower. When they were clear, they had to be wary of the enemy's attacks. If it wasn't for their hand speed and familiarity with the map, they wouldn't have been able to do it. Some people were stunning the moment they started a battle. As for some people, the longer they competed, the more you realized how amazing they were. Be it Feng Shang or Xiangnan's players. Compared to their maneuvers, their left hands were tapping on the keyboard while their right hands moved the mouse. Their side profile was more attractive. At first, there weren't many people in this world who were working hard. After all, you and I both know that this is a world where relationships and looks are the most important. But when they saw the two of them, they felt that hard-working people were really handsome. The 10th battle took place on the high ground. Feng Shang took the initiative and caught the opponent red-handed. Lin Feng was instantly energized, waiting to see how Feng Shang was going to take the first HP. But at this moment, Qin Mo frowned. "No. I can't?" Bojiu asked. Feng Shang had already cut the opponent into half. But in that instant, Feng Shang's fingers paused. Glancing at his screen. He was out of mana, which meant that he was out of mana. The game notification stated that without mana, the big move wouldn't be displayed, which was fatal in close combat. Xiangnan's player seized the opportunity, turning to lock onto him, activating his big move. Feng Shang's hands moved swiftly, entering the bushes with a beautiful set of footwork. He avoided the fatal blow. Just as everyone was about to heave a sigh of relief, Xiangnan's player chased after him. He didn't give Feng Shang any time to recover, locking onto him with his second skill, using his strongest attack. KO. It was the first HP since the start of the battle. The atmosphere was ignited. Xiangnan, victory. The first kill was the best way to boost morale, it wasn't wrong. That wasn't all, at this stage of the competition, the death meant the loss of the city. Feng Shang watched as the timer ticked down, his fingers constantly switching the map, trying to see where the opponent was attacking. Xiangnan's player hadn't returned to the city, instead, he had used a wave of troops, using the blood-sucking knife to recover his HP, fighting his way out of the city. 9, 8, 7. Feng Shang watched as the numbers jumped, gripping the mouse tightly, wishing that the time could move faster. Finally, it was 1. Feng Shang was about to rush out when the sound of the city shattering came over. Silver shards fell from his hair. Feng Shang froze in a daze. He watched as the screen in front of him darkened bit by bit. Chapter 987. Lost. Almost everyone was in disbelief. But the competition had ended. The lights dimmed over at Supreme Alliance's side. Xiangnan's side was the only one left. Feng Shang was still holding onto the mouse, prepared to dash out in the fastest way possible. The results appeared on the screen. 0v1 Xiangnan had won the first match. Come, let's take a look at the head count. The shoutcaster was the first to recover. He had wanted to report 0v1. However, when he saw the data, he was stunned. The head count is 1v1. What was going on? The audience exchanged glances. The shoutcaster shot the director a look, cutting into the replay. Everyone then saw that after Feng Shang came out, his ultimate skill accurately landed on the Xiangnan player. If it wasn't for the super soldier beside him. In this round, Supreme Alliance might not necessarily lose. In fact, they might be able to turn the tables since Xiangnan had one less defense tower than Supreme Alliance. But there weren't many ifs, a loss was a loss. Xiangnan's contestant was the first to stand up. He took off his headset and walked towards Feng Shang. As he brushed past him, he said, "You're amazing." There wasn't any concealment in his words. It came from the microphone. In that instant, the entire arena erupted in applause. Feng Shang paused. "You too." His performance on the arena was steady, like a sharpened sword from a youngster, possessing the stability and sharpness that he should have. At this moment, no one asked, "Who is Feng Shang?" "I've never heard of him." Instead, they used applause to express everything. Feng Shang left the arena, glancing at Coco, turning his face over. Coco had always relied on acting cute to make his millions of fangirls happy. He had never coaxed a guy. Her cute face tensed up, and she didn't say a word of comfort. Damn it. He stuffed his rabbit into Feng Shang's hands. "Here." No, you don't have a rabbit, you're going to the washroom anxiously." Feng Shang's voice was hoarse. Coco bit his tongue. "Who said I was nervous? Before the start of the match, you went to the toilet 5 times. Feng Shang's breathing was still a little heavy. Coco reached out to stop him. "Don't talk nonsense, little stutterer. I was just going to wash my hands." Bojio watched from afar as the two kids leaned against each other. She wasn't sure what they were thinking, but she knew that this time, Feng Shang didn't need any guidance. In a match like this, a strong self-healing ability was also a kind of growth. Next up, was the 2v2. Bojio glanced up at the screen. Someone once said that Xiangnan's 2v2 was an unbreakable defense. Because they were a pair of twin brothers, they had an innate tacit understanding. In this aspect, no one could compare to them. There was also Lin Feng and Yunhu. Bojio arched a brow. Something seemed amiss. She glanced over and asked Lin Feng, "What's wrong? They didn't decide the winner on the bed yesterday? Is that why you're angry today?" Lin Feng glanced at Yunhu, who was wiping his hands with a tissue and making the final preparations. He sighed deeply. "Stop talking, I have to coax someone." Bojio frowned. It seemed like there really was a problem. Lin Feng took something and walked towards Yunhu. He felt that since Yunhu didn't want to drink the mineral water and didn't want to use the tissue, he shouldn't reject his wrist guard in front of so many people. Chapter 988. Lin Feng's idea was good, but he didn't expect to see Yunhu already wearing his wristband. It was a newly bought Nike wristband. Lin Feng, who wanted to take action, could only stand there stupidly with his wrist guard. He looked at the face that hadn't looked at him since he came in. His throat felt a little uncomfortable, and he had the urge to fight someone. Couldn't they be brothers just because they couldn't be lovers? Lin Feng was infuriated. What was he going to do? Take it off and wear mine. Yunhu glanced at him but didn't move. Lin Feng clenched his fists. This scene was extremely embarrassing. But they were about to compete and he couldn't be affected by his emotions. Lin Feng drank a mouthful of water, lowering his head to calm down before wearing the wrist guard. Feng Yi walked over. At this moment, the manager was still useful. He swept them a glance. The competition is about to begin. Both of your problems can be resolved after the competition. I don't need to elaborate on their skills, you should be aware of their chemistry. But since Xiangnan has sent them out, it means that they are getting serious. The 2v2 will determine if there will be a team battle, but you should know that neither Spade nor Qin Mo can participate in this round because in the team battle, other than the two of them, no one else can go against Zhao Jinglua's team. You have to win this round to continue the competition and Supreme Alliance's hope will depend on you. Understood. Lin Feng reached out to remove the wrist guard on Yunhu's left hand. Yunhu couldn't help but glance at him. That fellow was tugging him and putting something on his hand. Yunhu stilled when he saw the picture. It was a wrist guard from a long time ago. He had probably given it to him when they were in junior high. Back then, this fellow had been doing things that infuriated him every day. He had told him to ignore the girls who sent him love letters. But he had been more concerned about them than anyone else, always sending them into his hands. Back then, Yunhu hadn't been sure what he was thinking, but he had been annoyed. He was annoyed that this fellow was a busybody. Compared to that, he was more annoyed that this fellow had no morals at all. He would accept the snacks that the girls sent him. He wondered if the food he bought for him was not enough for him to eat. He bought a wrist guard, sprayed the word reject on it, and put it on that guy's wrist. At first, Yunhu thought it was long gone since a certain someone had fought with him to pluck it. From the looks of it now, it wasn't that he didn't cherish it. He watched as the man put on the wrist guard seriously. Yunhu thought. This time, he wouldn't make things difficult for him. He just couldn't like himself the way she liked him. In fact, Lin Feng was already very soft-hearted towards him. He had always known that. That was why he had reached out for a yard after being given an inch, thinking that he could have more. It was probably because he was always being watched. Lin Feng's old face was a little awkward. He muttered, "Even if I'm handsome, you can't look at me like that. What are you suspecting me of? Let me tell you, I must win this competition. If I win, I'll let you press me down." In that instant, Yunhu thought he had heard wrongly. His gaze sharpened as he asked hesitantly, "What did you say?" Chapter 989. Yunhu glanced at Lin Feng but didn't say anything. Lin Feng was puzzled. He was already rushing over, but Yunhu wasn't going to accept. Seriously, voluntary? Yunhu interrupted Lin Feng's thoughts. Lin Feng replied. Yunhu tilted his head. "Are we going to your house or mine? We'll talk about this after the competition." Lin Feng lowered his voice. Yunhu retracted his gaze, glancing at the figure in front of him before glancing down at the wrist guard on his left hand. Next, he lowered his lids, opening his mouth to bite the corner of the wrist guard, tugging it upwards. His handsome face along with his actions sent the fans into a frenzy. This was simply a pink blush. The wrist guard was a gift from Lin Feng. Their almighty Yun had bitten down on it. Even though it was just a touch of his lips, it wasn't any different from biting someone. Lin Feng glanced over when he heard the noise. That was the scene he saw, his back trembling. Zhao Sanpang caressed his chin. "Supreme Alliance seems to be good at creating a CP, Captain. Why don't we do the same later? Isn't it just a wrist guard?" "Creating a CP depends on one's face," Beauty Luo replied lazily, poking him with her finger. Beauty Luo said lazily and poked him with her finger. "Your face is hopeless." Zhao Sanpang wanted to say something, but Xiao Jing stopped him. Xiao Jing stopped him with one sentence. "Focus on the game." The 2v2 officially began. Lin Feng, Yunhu, and the Xiangnan twins were all seated in front of the computer with their headphones on. It was obvious that this was a 2v2 that everyone felt was evenly matched. After Feng Shang's style in the previous match, the analysts didn't dare to analyze it casually. The shoutcaster remained neutral. The score between Supreme Alliance and Xiangnan is 0-1. This means that as long as Xiangnan wins this 2v2, they will become the national champions once again. This match is undoubtedly the crux of the day. Supreme Alliance probably won't let Xiangnan win so easily. Lin Feng and Yunhu's teamwork is one of the best in the circle. Sending them out is the best formation Supreme Alliance has. Speaking of the best duo, I watched the replay of the last Supreme Alliance match. Qin Mo and Spade Z's teamwork is very suitable for this 2v2. But in this case, Supreme Alliance will definitely lose the team battle. Qin Mo has to stay behind to deal with Xiao Jing. That's the logic. Following the commentator's explanation, the game page appeared on the big screen. Both sides had chosen the same lineup: main damage dealer and warrior. A warrior's HP was higher than an assassin's, and it was also a test of hand speed. Through this competition, we can see that Supreme Alliance's players have more or less improved. In the past, each of them used to specialize in the same character. Now, it seems different. Supreme Alliance's performance is worth anticipating. Be it Lin Feng or Yun Hu, they are both unique players in terms of individual and team battles. However, their speed seems to be slightly slower than Xiangnan. Indeed, he was almost there. Not because of anything else, but because of their teamwork. From the start of the competition, the audience had noticed the unusual teamwork between the Xiangnan twins. When the main damage dealer took down the red beasts, the warrior would move first and use his second skill to help. When the red beasts were left with less than half of their HP, the warrior would pull up and move to the bottom lane to clear the soldiers. This maneuver was much faster than the jungler. Chapter 990. As compared to Xiangnan, they were still using the same solo style. This style might be able to balance both sides, but in reality, it had a fatal flaw. Yu Cixin smirked, placing his hands behind his head. There was a sharp beauty to it. If Supreme Alliance continues to fight like this, the competition will end prematurely. Hoshino didn't make any comments. His eyes were fixed on Supreme Alliance. Even his action of picking up a bottle of water to drink was recorded by the media. Unless it was an international competition, it would be difficult to watch both of them appear at the same time. Hoshino remained silent, which meant that he agreed with Yu Cixin's words. Supreme Alliance's double fight had to be a double fight in order to win. However, every team was different from each other. Or perhaps Supreme Alliance had their own way of fighting. But regardless, it wasn't possible to continue with the current pace. However, it wasn't clear when Qin Mo would interrupt the competition to guide them. Hoshino tapped the bottle in his hand. He had always wanted to know what exactly was on Qin Mo for Z to care so much about him. Xiangnan's fighting style is stable, the wilderness is clean, and Supreme Alliance isn't given a chance to come over. They didn't even forget to clear the troops. Since there wasn't any breaking point, the shoutcaster could only introduce the situation. Supreme Alliance is still moving the troops. Let's take a look at the top lane. Are they preparing for battle? The moment the shoutcaster finished his sentence, Xiangnan's player used a big move to attack Lin Feng. The other DPS player hid in the bushes, blocking the way. Such a strong attack was fatal to Lin Feng, leaving him with less than a third of his HP. If it had been a 1v1, Lin Feng wouldn't have lost, but it was a 1v2 and he was in a dangerous situation. Fortunately, there was a healing bag under the defense tower. If not, the second skill of the main attacker, Big Cannon, would have sent him back to the city with low HP. Beautiful. The shoutcaster said. It's a pity they didn't manage to take the first HP. Xiangnan's main attacker hid in a good position, blocking the path, and in the later stages, they would have been able to kill him instantly. Now Lin Feng is hesitating whether he should continue guarding the tower. Another cannon shot. This is really when the two from Xiangnan unleash their skills at the same time. You can dodge one of them, but it's really hard to dodge the other. Their coordination is too good, one on the left and one on the right. Lin Feng should have returned to the city to heal himself. If not, if this drags on, he'll definitely die. If he doesn't defend, this tower will be gone. It seems like Xiangnan is going to suppress Supreme Alliance in all aspects. Wait a minute, Yun Hu is here. He's going for the back row. What a beautiful move. However, it was useless. It was a 1v2 and the other party wasn't a newbie. The moment Yun Hu arrived, Xiangnan's main attacker activated his sprinting skill. His attacks were well practiced and difficult for warriors to catch. In addition, there was another person restraining him. No matter how good Yun Hu's skills were, he could only retreat to the bottom of the tower. His HP had dropped by half and it wasn't worth it. Everyone realized a problem. The rhythm of the match was in Xiangnan's hands. Chapter 991. The 2v2 was different from Feng Shang's single match. Even if Feng Shang lost, there was still the next match to win. But if they lost the 2v2, it would be the end. At this moment, Supreme Alliance's fans started to panic. Previously, Shui Yaoyao hadn't been able to understand the pressure that Feng Yi had mentioned. At this moment, when Supreme Alliance was being suppressed, the cheers from Xiangnan were hard to ignore. Sometimes, the cheers from the audience could affect the emotions of the players. Hence, regardless of the competition, their mental state had to be strong. No one knew if Lin Feng was affected or not, but he looked a little anxious. Shui Yaoyao glanced over at the youngster with a lollipop in her mouth. Both Highness Jiao and young Master Qin didn't seem to have any intention of guiding them. But this was the first time she saw Highness Jiao watching a match so seriously. Her expression was different from usual. This meant that Lin Feng and Yun who had met a strong opponent this time. Shui Yaoyao didn't know much about tactics, but when she saw that her team members didn't even have a chance to get out of the tower and were suppressed again and again, she understood the current situation. In the audience, someone pressed down on his cap but couldn't control his mouth. F***CK, it can't be, Lin Feng and Yun whose performance is terrible, I can't believe we lost to Supreme Alliance. Captain, tell me, no matter how good they are, why are Lin Feng and Yun who running away? They weren't like this during the single match. The person who spoke was Lin Chintao. He wore a hat to prevent himself from being recognized by the fans. He also put on a mask for his captain. The two of them sat in a hidden position. Even though there were many spectators nearby, they weren't among them. That was right. Almost all the teams were present for the match between Supreme Alliance and Xiangnan. They were there just for the match, which was captured by the media. Lin Chintao and Rao Rong weren't among them because of Rao Rong's current status. Before the investigation was completed, he couldn't return to the team. Besides, Lin Chintao hadn't forgotten Director Huang's words. Their captain was still in danger. That was why he made such a disguise. Honestly, he had hoped for Supreme Alliance to win. After all, Supreme Alliance was the one who had defeated them and prevented them from entering the National League. Besides, if they lost the 2v2 match, Qin Mo wouldn't be able to win. If they lost the 2v2 match, Qin Mo wouldn't have the chance to play again. Lin Chintao knew better than anyone else. Their captain wanted to watch the match between Qin Mo and Xiao Jing. The three of them had joined the professional team at the same time. Even though they were in different places, they had the same obsession. Their captain and Xiao Jing's greatest regret was not able to play against Qin Mo at his peak. Due to various reasons, the former number 1 team in the country had not been able to enter the national competition for 3 years. But things were different now. Supreme Alliance's team. With her around, Qin Mo wouldn't have to worry about anything. This year, Supreme Alliance's was the strongest team ever. If he walked here, he would be broken. He Chintao's would be the Team Lin team. Lin Chintao's. Chapter 992. Their individual fighting ability was too strong. This might be an advantage in a 1v1. In a team battle, Qin Mo would be the one commanding, balancing everyone's abilities. But in a 2v2, it wasn't an advantage. If they didn't get along well, the two of them would be too outstanding in their individual fights and would be suppressed by the opponent. It was impossible for Qin Mo not to know about this. But why did he send these two out? It was simple, it was a gamble. The other members of Supreme Alliance weren't a match for Xiangnan's duo. If Lin Feng and Yunhu teamed up, they might be able to fight, but it was too risky. That wasn't all. What worried Bojio the most was the rhythm of their typing. Because of her background, she was especially sensitive to the sound of the keyboard. The two of them were so well coordinated that even the keys of their left hands were on the same line. It was indeed a difficult fight. Kata. Xiangnan launched a new round of attacks. This time, it was stronger than before. Supreme Alliance's defense tower is about to be destroyed. The shoutcaster's voice landed. The first defense tower destroyed appeared on the screen. This match seemed to have gone by much faster than the previous one. In less than 5 minutes, a defense tower was destroyed. Was Supreme Alliance really going to lose? The fans were worried. The viewership ratings outside the arena would increase. Lin Feng and Yun Hu weren't like Feng Shang. They had been in this circle for too long. So long that they had experienced Supreme Alliance's prosperity and also Supreme Alliance's fall. They had been gaming for so many years. They couldn't afford to lose. Yu Cixin yawned lazily. From now on, Supreme Alliance has to take back the rhythm. If not, this match will be too boring. I woke up early to watch your favorite little spade, don't you think so, Hoshino? Hoshino glanced at him. Yes. You admit it so readily. Yu Cixin tugged his collar, his aura exuding a devilish aura. Why hasn't Qin Mo asked for any guidance? Probably because of trust. Hoshino glanced at the youngster's dark eyes. There was a light in them that he had never seen before. Qin Mo wasn't the only one who had changed Z, even the other members of Supreme Alliance had warmed her up. Otherwise, the light in his eyes wouldn't have dimmed even now. Yu Cixin pondered over this word. Trust? That was something he rarely got or believed in. However, he was curious as to why Qin Mo didn't move. Wait for the two of them to get used to each other? Was that even possible? In such a short period of time? Xiangnan had already started dismantling the second defense tower. It was as if the two of them had a shield and a knife. There was not a single flaw to be found. From Bojio's angle, Lin Feng's eyes were bloodshot. He had all the energy in his body but he couldn't find a suitable way to release it. He watched as the tower of his faction fell so quickly. A sense of unwillingness started to gather in his palms. How could he lose like this? He never wanted to see that person's head lowered ever again. Especially when he was about to leave. Chapter 993. Europe. In reality, it wasn't far. It was just a day's flight from Jiang City. But Lin Feng knew that it wasn't the location that pulled them apart. It was their plans for the future and their circle of friends. Sometimes, Lin Feng would always be afraid. This fear was something that he had since he was young. He was afraid that his brother, who was always with him, would one day fall too far behind him. After all, that person was so outstanding, be it in studies or fighting. In order not to be looked down upon by that person, he, who wasn't very smart, started to study harder than others, practicing his skills and playing ball. Lin Feng understood that people could be like that when they were young, doing whatever they wanted. But it wasn't like that when they grew up. Lin Feng didn't tell Yun Hu that the Lin family was moving. Moving away from the courtyard was equivalent to leaving a circle. In reality, it wasn't that bad. Anyway, the Lin family was rich. But it was different. The Yun family was powerful and they only had one son, Yun Hu. Although Lin Feng appeared to be naive, he was actually more farsighted than anyone else. No matter how much Auntie Yun liked him, it was because he was Yun Hu's brother and nothing else. The Lin family couldn't take any more provocation. It wasn't that Lin Feng's parents didn't mention sending Lin Feng overseas. But Lin Feng understood that they needed him to stay in the country. Be it at the company or at home. The Lin family was defeated. Some things would change. Both of them had been eating well since they were young and they were equally matched. Lin Feng was afraid that Yun Hu would be studying abroad while he was a regular at the dining table. When that happened, they probably wouldn't have anything to talk about. No matter how deep their relationship was, it would slowly fade with the difference in social status and location. Only by winning. That was the only way for that person to remember forever. He, Lin Feng, had appeared in his youth. Lin Feng glanced at Yunhu. That person was still defending. The second tower hadn't shattered. They still had a chance. At this moment, Lin Feng's right hand stopped. He suddenly changed his direction. He didn't head to the tower to provide support. Instead, he ran to the jungle to kill monsters. Yunhu's gaze shifted. He looked at that person's serious side profile and smiled. He continued to defend the tower. He had no intention of returning to the city to heal even though he didn't have much HP left. Xiangnan's players prepared to cross the tower and attack. Yunhu took a step back to avoid the soldiers' advance. Then, he moved nimbly to the bottom of the tower and counterattacked. Of course, this counterattack wasn't enough for Yunhu to take the first HP. On the contrary, Yunhu's HP was lower than before. Fortunately, a healing pack came out, allowing him to replenish his HP and avoid the danger of being killed. The Xiangnan soldiers who had just charged into the defense tower had lost a third of their HP. Chapter 994. The atmosphere seemed to have sunk to its lowest point. Especially Supreme Alliance's fans, their voices weren't as loud as they had been at the start. They had never seen the Feng Yun duo being suppressed so miserably. Yun, who had been guarding the tower and hadn't come out. Even if they didn't understand, they understood that it was going to be difficult for their favorite team to win. Anxiety seemed to be contagious. At that moment, they felt that the Feng Yun duo shouldn't exist. If they had fought separately, they would have been able to utilize each other's strengths. But now, they were dragging each other down and weren't able to work together. Fans were a strange existence. There was one thing that Feng Yi was right about. When girls saw two handsome people, they might say that they were a good match, but when it came to reality, they wouldn't be giving their blessings. Just like now, there was already a small grudge between the fans. They felt that Lin Feng hadn't been there to support them in time, hence, they started to make a fuss. They were also divided into the fans and the CP fans. Actually, Lin Feng doesn't have any special abilities. He's indeed a little fast, but if Almighty Qin and I were to fight together, we would definitely win. But Almighty Qin and I will definitely win. Lin Feng wasn't online the whole time. I don't even want to talk about his operation. From the past until now, when didn't he rely on me to turn the situation around? If we really want to compare, Lin Feng was also brought up by me. In the past, for my sake, it didn't matter how you guys tried to create a couple. But now, it's obvious that Lin Feng has implicated me. It was unknown if the media was deliberately trying to stir up the topic, but they singled out this fan and even broadcasted it to let the audience see this scene. Bo Jiao frowned instinctively. She was angry at the director's actions and the words. Perhaps when some fans liked a person, they would really treat that person as their own family, but they never thought about whether or not they were really good to their idol when they did something. It wasn't a good method to trample on someone to like someone else. Besides, if Yun Hu had heard this, he would have smashed his mouse. For some fans to explode at this time meant that this problem had existed in the past. But Bo Jiao glanced up, her gaze landing on the naive Lin Feng, who was still focused on moving his mouse. She lifted the corners of her lips. He had heard some of the words and had probably digested them himself. Lin Feng hadn't even told Yun Hu about the extent of the situation. There were indeed a lot of fans of the couple. There would be a lot of cute couples. Even if it was just a normal interaction, they would still talk about love. Once the fans felt that one of them was not worthy of the other, they would say anything. As someone who had been through it before, Bo Jiao knew their tricks. They wouldn't say anything on the surface and would send you a private message secretly. When she saw the first message, she immediately blocked it. She didn't know what Lin Feng was doing. It was just that she and the Almighty had only been a couple for a short period of time, and there were already a bunch of people who wanted her dead. In the past few years, how many times had Lin Feng received comments like, "You're not worthy of our Cloud University. You're so bad at games, don't drag our Cloud University down." At that time. Chapter 995. Lin Feng was thinking about how to win. Yes, from the start, the naive Lin Feng had been thinking about how to win. The first time someone said that about him, he would explain himself, explain the game, explain that he wouldn't be a burden to Yunhu in the future. But, for the 100th time, he looked at the private messages and told himself that he couldn't let that person lose again. Or perhaps, you people are nothing, knowing that I'm the most upset if I lose. I'm a straight man, why would I form a CP? He would suspect if he was really a burden to that person. For the 1000th time. He sat in front of the computer, practicing his hand speed for 8 hours. He practiced when his skills couldn't keep up. He wasn't that smart. Since young, he had to spend 3 hours or even half a day to memorize the key points that Yunhu could remember in an hour. Sometimes, Lin Feng would think that if it wasn't for that person, reminding him to work hard, he would never have become such an outstanding person. And now, he just didn't want to lose. It wasn't just because of that person. It was because if he lost here, those days of training in front of the computer, Yao Yao's dream of becoming more dazzling, Uncle's return to his original self, Baby Feng's month of hard work and Little Spade's absence. For these people, he couldn't be a burden to anyone. Lin Feng moved the mouse, the view on the screen switched to Yunhu's side. Because compared to Lin Feng, this battle seemed to be more interesting. Yunhu's positioning and speed were especially beautiful, so much so that people couldn't help but ask what exactly Lin Feng was doing. Why didn't he replace Yunhu? Didn't Lin Feng know that Almighty Yun was on the verge of death? Just as the fan said that, a line of words suddenly appeared on the big screen. The Tyrant King has been killed. Tyrant King? The two from Xiangnan paused, immediately switching to the small map. But they realized that Lin Feng hadn't just killed the Tyrant King, he had also wiped out the minions in the bottom lane and the beasts on their side. But that wasn't the end. Just as they were switching to the small map, a figure appeared behind them. It was the warrior controlled by Lin Feng. It was the warrior controlled by Lin Feng. He immediately marked the opponent's main damage dealer in the back row. He raised his ultimate and followed up with a second skill, followed up with a critical hit. As Lin Feng's speed was too fast, coupled with his current finances, he was the highest in the entire arena. Everyone knew that maneuvering was very important in Hero. However, there was another important factor in the game, and that was the economy of both players. Having more money meant that your equipment would be better than your opponent's. The better the equipment, the greater the damage. In other words, with the same operating methods and skills, whoever had a higher economy would basically decide who would live and who would die in this PK. It was too late for Xiangnan to activate the backline protection measures. In melee combat, ranged damage dealers were always vulnerable to attacks. Moreover, Lin Feng had jumped over directly, leaving no chance for Xiangnan to react. So it was too late. Not only that, but Lin Feng seemed to have seen that they had finished their big moves before he stabbed his spear in. Chapter 996. The first drop of blood. First kill. Just thinking about these words would make one's blood boil. Not to mention, when they saw the word KO appear on the screen, they instantly stood up with explosive force. The screams almost tore the roof off. Everyone's gaze fell on Lin Feng. His eyes shone with a bright light. The fan who had been saying that Lin Feng was a burden to Yun, who felt his mind go blank for a moment, his expression turning ugly. However, no one was paying attention to these messages. Even the commentator was stunned for a second before he hurriedly said, "Beautiful. This move is really beautiful. Let's see the replay." Basically, no one watched the replay. This was because Lin Feng didn't return to the tower after killing the main damage dealer. Instead, he took a step back and stood in front of the Xiangnan warrior. Half health versus full health. There was no big move yet. What was Lin Feng trying to do? The shoutcaster was confused. But soon, he understood. Yunhu, who had been standing at the bottom of the tower, had moved. After eating the HP pack, he sprinted and pierced through. The two of them trapped the warrior from Xiangnan in the middle. Yunhu's big move took away half of the opponent's HP. Lin Feng dodged to the side and followed up with his second skill. With a beautiful set of footwork, he closed in to block his opponent. It had to be said that the Xiangnan warrior's positioning was beautiful. Even at this moment, his maneuvers weren't messed up. With a dodge, he managed to shake off Lin Feng. But it was only temporary. Every time Yunhu's attack landed on him, his HP would drop rapidly. Lin Feng didn't even give him a chance to breathe. One of the twins waved the mouse and saw that they had escaped back to the tower. They should be safe now. With less than half of his HP remaining, he used a high-level skill. Tower Assault. 2 more words appeared on the screen, accompanied by an exciting sound effect. Double kill. All of a sudden, the arena was in an uproar. The shoutcaster maintained his rationality. Lin Feng's HP is severely low. If he crosses the tower like this, wouldn't he be trading a life for a life? Looking at the screen again, it was indeed very thrilling. However, the young man smiled with the lollipop in his mouth and only said 2 words, no. Bojio replied because she could tell from Lin Feng's attack just now. She wondered where he had learned the Almighty's calculation methods. He was actually able to use it. Even though Lin Feng was still being attacked by the defense tower and his HP was getting lower and lower, he still managed to escape from the tower and hide in the bushes. He was about to return to the city with only a sliver of HP left. It would be belittling Xiangnan if it ended just like that. At this moment, Xiangnan's main long-range attacker stood in the middle of the city. Based on his many years of gaming experience, he fired a long-range cannon at Lin Feng, who was about to return to the city. K.O. Lin Feng, Yunhu, Bojio, the shoutcaster, almost everyone had the same expression. Lin Feng was almost petrified. From the way he held the mouse, it could be seen that he had been in that position for a long time. After all, even Xiangnan's side didn't expect that the attack would really hit. Chapter 997. Lin Feng couldn't understand why he could hear Zhao Sanpeng's laughter through the soundproof headset. If he wasn't in the middle of a game, he would have stood up to beat him up. This shot. Lin Feng held it in. In the end, he reached out to rub his ears. He had to kill his way back. It was too embarrassing. Why couldn't he return home beautifully after the double kill? He didn't want to recall being killed on his way back to the city. Yunhu returned to the city as well, glancing over at Lin Feng, who was waiting for his revival. He released his mouse for a second. Then he placed his hand on Lin Feng's head, rubbing it before retracting it swiftly. But even so, it was still recorded by the camera on the screen. Yu Cixin arched a brow, a hint of playfulness in his eyes. Supreme Alliance sure is interesting. It seems like there's a change in tempo. Hoshino was still like an ancient prince, twirling the carbon pen in his hands, a faint smile on his face. They might seem to be playing individually, but in reality, they are expanding the scope of the double. They aren't on the same path, but they have a clear division of labor. One of them is guarding the tower to stall for time, while the other is in charge of increasing their finances and minions. Xiangnan didn't just trade 2 for 1, they even destroyed 2 of their defense towers. It's almost a done deal. Yu Cixin smiled devilishly. Next, let's see if the little spade Z you are concerned about is the real Z or fake Z. Hoshino didn't reply. On the other hand, Lin Shentao, who was sitting in the corner, pushed up the brim of his cap. His handsome face was scrunched up, and he was a little confused. Why do I feel like this is so familiar? Qin Mo, Rao Rong only said 2 words. When Lin Shentao glanced over, Rao Rong's eyes seemed to be bright and heavy. Rao Rong's eyes seemed to be bright and heavy at the same time. During the semi-finals, Qin Mo and Spade Z used similar tactics to defeat you and me. Lin Shintao paused for a second before he reacted. F***ck, that's why it looks so familiar. Lin Feng and Yun who are quick learners. Sinister, they are too sinister. Although that was what he said, Lin Shintao knew how difficult it was to achieve such an effect. What state were they in when they first entered the arena? They knew it very well. However, in such a short period of 10 minutes, he could even see Lin Feng's rapid growth. That in itself was already very powerful. Under such great pressure, he was still able to think of such a move and calculate the time it took for the big move to be released. Lin Shintao didn't think he could do it. Perhaps he would understand after the competition, but to grow during the competition, Supreme Alliance might really be able to defeat Xiangnan. Rao Rong watched a certain someone who was in a daze, his voice rising again. Do you know what the most challenging part of a 2v2 is? Tacit understanding. Lin Shintao thought to himself. Rao Rong shook his head. No, it's not chemistry, it's trust. As long as there was enough trust, such perfect cooperation could be achieved. Whether it was Lin Feng, Yun Hu, or those two, Rao Rong lowered his lids, turning towards Supreme Alliance. Bo Jiu reached into her pocket but didn't find anything. She tried to strike a conversation. Brother Mo, did you expect this? No. Qin Mo watched the youngster's actions, tossing the candy in his pocket to her, his voice dignified. This is the last one, you can only eat it after the competition. Chapter 998. The 2v2 competition came to an end. Xiangnan had already noticed the problem. This wave wasn't just about the rhythm, it was also a problem with the strategy. The twins' innate advantage was the tacit understanding between the two of them. This was originally the most lethal weapon for others. But because of Lin Feng and Yun Hu's strategy, this situation was completely broken. If they were to fight separately, the twins' individual ability wouldn't be a match for Lin Feng and Yun Hu. If they didn't split up, they could only watch as Lin Feng cleared the troops to increase his economy and the defense tower disappearing quickly. Once the situation was broken, the game progressed faster. If they were to lead the troops, the super troops would be able to destroy the defense tower. Previously, Supreme Alliance had been suppressed under the defense tower and couldn't come out. After that, Supreme Alliance showed everyone their speed. Lin Feng's attack speed. Along with the news of the Almighty's death, the screen flashed. Xiangnan couldn't hold on anymore. Lin Feng led a wave of troops to attack from the side, directly to the center of the city. The two of them wanted to return to the city but were interrupted by Yun Hu's long-range big move. In less than a few seconds, there was the sound of the city being destroyed. The screen was filled with a dazzling silver light. Lin Feng took off his headphones with difficulty. Just as he was about to heave a sigh of relief, he shook his numb hand. Yun Hu had already stood up, one hand on the table. He leaned over and whispered in his ear, "Don't forget what you promised me. Don't run, understand?" Lin Feng's neck stiffened visibly. F***ck, it couldn't be. He still remembered. Besides, were all gay people like this? They liked to talk directly into other people's ears. F***ck Lin Feng felt like he had suffered a loss. He thought about it carefully. Why was he the one who took the double kill and destroyed the defense tower? Why was he the one who was suppressed in the end? This wasn't a good deal. Lin Feng lowered his head and went down. No one else knew why. As long as he knew, Supreme Alliance won the 2v2 match. But those who were observant could tell that if the attack hadn't been so fast, Supreme Alliance wouldn't have won if the competition had dragged on. This was because the twins had already pushed the tower to the high ground. Supreme Alliance's advantage lay in the large dragon in the wilderness. With the flying dragon as their vanguard, Xiangnan wasn't able to defend in time. It could be said that this was a match of equal strength. Even until the end of the competition, the score was still 2-1. Supreme Alliance only had one more kill than Xiangnan. It wasn't that they weren't good enough. It was just that both sides' positioning, skills, and even experience and judgment allowed them to rarely lose their lives. However, everyone knew that whether it was the qualifiers, the provincial competition, the regional competition, or even the semi-finals, Xiangnan had won every single one of them. Even when they met strong teams, they had already won the first 2 rounds. But now, the shoutcaster glanced down the field. This is the first time Xiangnan has suffered a loss. It seems like Supreme Alliance has broken Xiangnan's record to a certain extent. There will be a half-an-hour break and Xiangnan will probably decide the final lineup based on Supreme Alliance's strategy. This should be enough to force out Xiangnan's true strength. The other shoutcaster chuckled. Xiangnan will only use their full lineup during international competitions. But for this round, I'm afraid they won't be able to make any adjustments. Yes, a 2v2 is very damaging. You mentioned Supreme Alliance's strategy. What do you think Supreme Alliance's strategy is? How should I put it? The shoutcaster glanced at the camera as though he was searching for a word to describe it. In the end, he said, they are strong against strong opponents. Strong against strong opponents? The other shoutcaster arched a brow. What do you mean? Let's talk about the first player, Feng Shang. It's rare for a rookie to grow so quickly. Even during the battle, he might have been slow at the start, but towards the end, he got better. Honestly, I've watched Supreme Alliance's previous matches and he wasn't like this back then. The shoutcaster's voice was deep and convincing. I believe that as long as he is given time to grow, it won't be long before Supreme Alliance has another ace like Yun who can take charge of the situation. So you are analyzing Supreme Alliance from Feng Shang's perspective? That's not it. The shoutcaster pointed to the screen. In the 2v2 match, both of us can see that Lin Feng and Yun who didn't intend to use such a strategy at the start. They changed their strategy after seeing the coordination between the Xiangnan players and decided to use a peripheral strategy to attack the dragon and the tower instead of killing people because they know how difficult it will be in the later stages of the match. Usually, when players are at a disadvantage in a match, they would be in a daze, but Supreme Alliance seems to be the exact opposite. Their trust in each other has reached a certain level, and the more disadvantageous the situation, the more impressive their strategy is. They are able to adjust their strategy according to the opponent's habits. This is an extremely high level of strategy, hence, it is most appropriate to describe Supreme Alliance as the stronger they are, the stronger they are. Seems like you are confident Supreme Alliance can win against Xiangnan. Not necessarily. The shoutcaster was objective. Xiangnan's strength doesn't lie in their total victory. Even if they lose a round, it won't affect their confidence. Besides, Xiangnan's team battle isn't something anyone would want to challenge. In esports, it is important to set the pace, but in Xiangnan's team battle, once you start, you will understand that the opponent's strategy is ever-changing and it isn't easy to set the pace. After hearing the shoutcaster's words, the cameras immediately shifted to Xiangnan's position. When they saw the image on the screen, the audience was astonished. Xiangnan didn't look like they had lost the 2v2. On the other hand, Zhao Sanpeng patted the twins on their shoulders. Lin Feng is too shameless. You guys aren't his match when it comes to shamelessness. He always sneakily fights the dragon. Seriously, I can't stand Supreme Alliance for this. Everyone, when they turned to Xiao Jing, he added, recognize your own shortcomings and change them during the international competition. Almighty Xiao seemed to be implying that Supreme Alliance was helping their own team members in this double match. It seems like Xiangnan isn't affected at all. Let's wait for the team battle. Wait a minute, Xiangnan's team members are out. The strongest lineup. It is indeed the strongest lineup. What about Supreme Alliance? Qin Mo, Spade Z, north of Yin Mountain, Coco, and Shui Yao Yao. There's a girl in both teams. Girls are different from each other. I'm not exaggerating, but Goddess Luo doesn't only destroy the other team's girl, she can also destroy Coco. This sentence was indeed correct. Because in the esports world, Goddess Luo was the only female player in the top 10 in the country. Her positioning and hand speed weren't exaggerated at all. The reason why Xiangnan was so strong was because of her cannons. That's right, it will be difficult for Supreme Alliance to win the team battle. Don't forget, Supreme Alliance has Almighty Qin. Xiangnan will find a way to suppress Almighty Qin. Just wait and see, Almighty Zhao's skills aren't much different from Almighty Qin's. It is impossible to rely on one person to lead the team. What about Spade C? The FC King of Zone C, this is a team battle, it's hard to say. Listening to the endless discussions, Yi Zichen nodded. Supreme Alliance didn't seem to have any changes. Many people said that perhaps this was how growing up was. Being criticized, and attacked. At the start, when they heard these, they would feel terrible. Because the negative impact would always be stronger than the positive. But when you have teammates, when you have that youngster sitting beside you, you will understand. You will understand that I am standing here, pure and innocent. I will only speak with my strength. Even if I lose in the end, I will have a clear conscience. This was Shui Yaoyao's thoughts. She had always liked Goddess Luo and was aware of the difference between the two of them. She would give it her all in this match. Bojio glanced over at the girl beside her whose eyes were shining brightly. He retracted his outstretched hand. Because she knew that Yao Yao didn't need any more advice. Supreme Alliance was in the best state to fight. Half an hour of rest time had entered the last minute of the countdown. Are you ready? Qin Mo stood up and stuffed one hand into his pocket. He stood tall and straight, exuding an air of elegance. His skin was fair to begin with, and under the light and camera, it looked like high-quality enamel. His thin lips were as light as water, and when the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, he exuded an aura that could turn the clouds and rain with a flip of his hand. I'm ready. Qin Mo raised his eyebrows and said faintly, let's go. The five of them lined up in a row. That scene was so handsome on the screen that it made people tremble. Not to mention the atmosphere in the stadium. The youngster's silver hair was the most eye-catching. She had long legs and a slim waist. She was in her battle uniform and the black hair band didn't diminish her handsomeness. Instead, it made the cameraman zoom in on her. The moment the two teams stepped onto the platform, not only did the atmosphere in the stadium reach a peak, even the views on the live broadcast platform exceeded 100 million in an instant. The real competition is about to begin. Yu Cixin chuckled, the devilish aura still present on his lips. Hoshino's eyes landed on the youngster. When he saw the lollipop in her mouth, he couldn't help but chuckle. What time was it? She was still so fond of sweets. Yu Cixin noticed Hoshino's gaze, but this time, he just narrowed his eyes and didn't say a word. Amidst the deafening sounds of support, there were a few crisp sounds. Supreme Alliance entered the game together. There was a ding. Chapter 999. It was just a few simple words. But when these words appeared on the big screen, some of the Spade fans couldn't help but clench the cola in their hands. It was about to begin. When all his emotions were left with this one sentence, even his heartbeat began to tremble. The young man sat in front of the computer. First, he held the mouse in his right hand and shook it a few times. Then, he clicked and entered the battle. He was so calm and composed that people who didn't know better would think that the young man was just playing an ordinary online game. The young man didn't seem to be a very serious person. He looked at the screen with a smile on his face, as though he was thinking about how to fast forward this segment. However, choosing the game character that one would control was an indispensable part of the competition. The shoutcaster pressed down on the microphone. Come, let's take a look at their choices. Supreme Alliance is the same as before, using 2 assassins while Xiangnan is going all out. Another shoutcaster chimed in, for the past 2 years, Xiangnan has rarely sent out a full lineup, right? Indeed, that's why it won't be an easy match for Supreme Alliance. From the screen, we can see that Xiangnan's characters are the bane of Supreme Alliance's characters. It won't be easy for Supreme Alliance to use the double assassin route. Following the commentator's explanation, the game page opened. Everyone entered the map and split into red and blue teams. Supreme Alliance was the red team while Xiangnan was the blue team. The team battle had officially begun. Everyone's eyes were filled with unprecedented attention. Regardless of whether it was the spectators in the arena or the esports fans in the internet cafes, they were all very quiet at this moment. Thinking back to that scene, even the internet cafe that was usually noisy became a low-decibel place. Other than the sound of the game's special effects, no one spoke. The camera first followed Qin Mo, then switched to Xiao Jing's side, and finally to Qin Mo's side. It locked onto him. Almighty Qin's strategy is the same as before. Start from the jungle on the blue monster's side. Assassins who use up skills quickly can only fly if they have mana. Otherwise, they won't be able to fight. Wait, is there someone in the bushes? It's true. Almighty Qin found it. That was why he took a step back. This was the most effective way to deal with the opponent stealing his mana. However, as soon as he took a step back, Zhao Sanpang rode his horse and charged over. Qin Mo's mouse moved, his left hand moving quickly on the keyboard. He successfully dodged the fatal attack from the left. What no one expected was that other than Zhao Sanpang, there were two more people behind him. Beauty Luo and Xiangnan's support. A ranged attack, a stun mark, a pincer attack. Qin Mo avoided one of them, but he didn't manage to avoid the stun circle. He was rooted to the spot. Beauty Luo carried the sniper cannon on her shoulder and rolled to fire. Qin Mo was left with a quarter of his HP. At this moment, the sound of horse hooves could be heard again. It was Zhao Sanpang from before. He raised his knife and charged straight at Qin Mo. That kind of lethality was accompanied by a strong airflow. No matter how fast an assassin was, if they encountered this move, they would die. Chapter 1000. F***CK. No one had expected the three of them to steal the blue. Luo hadn't appeared at the start, hiding in the bushes. They had planned to capture Almighty Qin in the jungle. Anyone who played games would know that no matter how good an assassin was, he wouldn't be able to fight against three people at the start, much less in such a situation. If the sorcerer in the middle lane could provide support in time, it might be possible, but Yao Yao was inexperienced. She hadn't switched to the small map, and when the other party arrived, they had already missed the best time to provide support. A coordinated attack in the middle and jungle. UC's lazy voice was sharp. This is Supreme Alliance's weakness. Xiangnan took advantage of this. If Qin Mo hadn't retreated quickly, he would have been surrounded. But even if he had dodged the attack, he wouldn't have been able to escape. There was a loud smack. Zhao Sanpang hadn't expected Qin Mo to be able to dodge such a heavy blow. He was starting to doubt his captain's guess. Qin Mo's hand hadn't recovered? It couldn't be a lie, right? Fortunately, he saw his teammate behind him. It was Goddess Luo, aiming her cannon at Qin Mo. This time, it was impossible to dodge. Both the shoutcasters and the audience couldn't help but close their eyes. No one could bear to see Xiangnan take the first kill from Qin Mo. Everyone was certain that there was no way to stop the attack. Goddess Luo's maneuvering was too awesome. Her positioning showed that she had predicted Zhao Sanpang's attack wouldn't be able to kill Qin Mo. It was a lethal shot. Even if Qin Mo was fast, he wouldn't be able to dodge. Right at this moment, a white figure flashed past. She didn't go for the target, instead, she charged forward, leaping over the tower and blocking Qin Mo, taking the shot. F***CK, little spade. Zhao Sanpang was the first to shout. After all, they were so close to taking the first kill, and it would be Qin Mo. They hadn't killed Qin Mo more than once or twice. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but it was ruined. Where the hell did this guy come from? Come back once you get the blue, Xiao Jing ordered. Zhao Sanpang obeyed, retreating swiftly. The shoutcaster heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Spade Z's support came in time. Chapter 1001. They couldn't link up in the middle. This might not be a big deal in a normal match. But this was the National League, the highest level match. All the battles in the high-level matches were in the jungle. There was no meaning in defending the tower. It wasn't just a test of the players' hand speed, it was also a test of their awareness. The constant switching of the map wasn't just to know where the enemy was, but also the situation of their teammates. When many people played hero, they thought sorcerer was just a control in the middle lane. In reality, that wasn't the case. A good sorcerer would always pay attention to the situation in their jungle so that they could provide support in time. The moment the battle started, the difference was clear. When Xiangnan sorcerer saw their people going over to steal the blue, he left the middle lane without a word, heading to the river at the side. He wanted to restrain Coco, who was coming over to support, so that his teammates could steal the blue and kill with ease. Shui Yaoyao's reaction wasn't that fast, she only moved after the blue had been stolen. It was obviously too late, missing the best time for the team battle. Originally, she thought the atmosphere would die down. Unexpectedly, after Qin Mo's HP was full, he said faintly, "Come back." The three words were calm and unhurried. The silver-haired youngster's thin lips curved upwards, leaping from the jungle and hiding in the bushes. Blue or red? Red. When Qin Mo was commanding, his voice was low, the indifferent quality spreading through the earpiece, giving them an inexplicable sense of confidence. Coco, go up to support. Yao Yao, restrain the middle lane, don't let him come over. You don't have to head over. Uncle, go to the jungle to harass Xiao Jing. When Yin Weiyao wasn't smoking, he still looked the same, replying, "All right," before leaping up. It was important for the main attacker to take down the red beasts. Hence, after stealing the opponent's blue, Goddess Luo cleared a wave of troops and jumped into her jungle, starting to attack the red beasts that came out. Everything seemed peaceful. Until Coco, who was half HP, came over. Goddess Luo maneuvered and pulled away the damage, hitting Coco directly. Zhao Sanpang, who had been clearing the troops, ran back on his horse, providing support in time. 1:00. Qin Mo's command allowed Coco to dodge Zhao Sanpang's knife. Having missed his attack, he cursed, F***ck me. Then, he turned around and slashed horizontally. Close combat, follow up. Qin Mo moved his mouse as he moved forward. With a single move, he dealt damage and slowed them down. Zhao Sanpang wasn't active but his mouth wasn't idle. Red, hurry and kill the red beasts, don't let them get it. When he saw Qin Lu's figure appear in their wilderness, Xiao Jing had wanted to jump over to help him. But with Yin Weiyao holding him back, even if he could shake him off, it would take time. But Yin Weiyao knew that he couldn't last much longer. Whether it was his skills or his current finances, he was still a level lower than Xiao Jing. When he was left with less than half of his HP, he retreated and told his teammates, Xiao Jing went over. Beauty Luo and Zhao Sanpang initially thought that the opponent's target was their red monster, because they were indeed there for the red monster. Chapter 1002. F***ck. That was Zhao Sanpang's first reaction. He couldn't use any of his skills. Little Spade, do you have to be so despicable, hiding in the bushes for 5 whole seconds? You sure are patient. He thought that was the end, but he didn't expect his opponent to stab him with his long spear. Moreover, there were 3 of them, and Coco was attacking from a distance. Zhao Sanpang's HP wasn't full to begin with, and now it was down to a third. Originally, he thought that he had finally gotten rid of the control and could run away. But at this moment, Qin Mo closed in again. With a wave of his long sword, he slowed him down again. But Zhao Sanpang wasn't afraid. He was riding a horse, so he had the advantage of 4 legs. But the moment he escaped from the electric formation, a figure dashed through the bushes, leaping over the wall. With a flick, he was sent flying into the air once again. Beauty Luo's support wasn't effective. It wasn't just because of Qin Mo's interference, but also because the figure had dodged the attack when he ran. Kata, kata, it was the silver-haired youngster with the lollipop in her mouth. Her fingers were nimble on the keyboard, and even her right hand was moving the mouse, drawing lines on the keyboard. The long spear moved horizontally, and silver light streaked across the screen. The sound effects were so crisp. K.O. The first kill. It was definitely the first kill. The screams from the audience were earth-shattering. In that instant, Zhao Sanpang's expression was blank. The shoutcaster couldn't believe it. In such a situation, Spade Z was still able to get the first kill, which was amazing. The young man, on the other hand, was retreating to farm as he pressed down on the public speaker. He smirked, "This is payback for your attack just now. Compared to stealing red, I prefer the blue you stole from us." After a second, Zhao Sanpang spat out, "What the F***ck?" The youngster was calm. "Who asked you to encircle my brother Mo?" Zhao Sanpang was speechless. Why did it feel like he had bullied the other party's little sweetheart, which was why the other party was targeting him? He felt so wrong for giving away this kill. "I say, you guys are a couple. Can you not bring your personal feelings into the game?" The young man's voice was even lazier now. "Don't talk trash. It's useless. You're dead anyway." Zhao Sanpang wanted to jump up. Xiao Jing's finger moved. "Qing troops, don't let others take away your emotions." Only then did Zhao Sanpang realize that he was losing his cool. Who would have thought that little Spade would go after him instead of hitting the red? This was a personal grudge. Just as the commentator was about to play the replay, the director suddenly switched the camera angle. In the middle lane, Shui Yaoyao was pierced by Xiao Jing with an invisible pierce. He grabbed her and moved closer to attack her. Shui Yaoyao's control was very good, but she couldn't freeze her opponent at all. Because it was Xiao Jing. How could Shui Yaoyao defeat Xiao Jing in a 1v1? Soon, the game's music started playing again. Shui Yaoyao's corpse lay directly under the tower. It had only been 3 seconds since Spade Z took the first blood. The score was once again tied. Once again, Xiao Jing's finances became the highest among all the contestants. Supreme Alliance's first blood advantage was gone. The middle lane also lost a large wave of minions. Chapter 1003. Supreme Alliance's chances of winning aren't high. Usually, the shoutcasters wouldn't give a conclusion to a team battle, but the collapse of the middle lane was a clear indication of their loss. The assassin wasn't up, which meant that the rhythm wasn't up. Compared to Xiangnan's dominance, Supreme Alliance was still going in circles. Qin Mo was the most obvious. In any of the previous matches, he had always been the most economical. After all, even Xiao Jing might not be able to achieve the same results as him in terms of maneuvering and positioning. But this time, he was second from the bottom. Shui Yaoyao's finances were at the bottom. Regardless of how one looked at it, it was clear that there was a problem with the combination. The wilderness is too important to Qin Mo, but Xiangnan is obviously trying to suppress him. From the start, they have been either attacking or harassing him. Lin Chintao was anxious. If this continues, Qin Mo's assassin is going to be useless. Without Qin Mo, Supreme Alliance won't be able to win this match. The sorcerer in the middle lane. Sigh, why isn't she helping Qin Mo? I really want to go up myself. Rao Rong remained silent. As a sorcerer, he could see Shui Yaoyao's flaws more easily than Lin Chintao. But at the same time, he understood that it wasn't possible for a newbie to play with a stream of consciousness. The combination wasn't something that could be done by just anyone. Supreme Alliance must have realized the problem as well. As expected, Qin Mo spoke. As he spoke, he didn't forget to clear the small beasts. His speed was astounding. Yao Yao, go to the bottom lane. Uncle, take the middle lane. All right. Yin Wuyao's hand speed was fast. As he swept through the wilderness, he forgot to switch to the small map in case of a surprise attack. Qin Mo was concerned about this as well. Be careful, he said. Just then, a person appeared from the bushes in the wilderness. It was Luoluo. Among all the long-range attacks, Luoluo's character was the most mobile. Similarly, it was a test of the player's hand speed and reflexes. More importantly, it was a test of one's gaming awareness. If she had appeared, Shui Yao Yao wouldn't have been able to freeze her. She was too mobile. That was why the shoutcaster had said at the start that Xiangnan's lineup was against Supreme Alliance. Compared to Supreme Alliance's old style, Xiangnan has their own strategy in choosing their characters. This is probably the ability of the champion team. They will do research in advance for every match. They're here. The shoutcaster lowered his voice and everyone turned to look at the screen. Luoluo rolled on the spot and jumped to a safe position. She pressed down on the sniper rifle and fired a shot in Shui Yao Yao's direction. A loud bang was heard. Shui Yao Yao's HP dropped by half. Yin Wuyao quickly retreated to prevent Luoluo from continuing to snipe him. However, to his surprise, it was not only Luoluo but also Xiao Jing who was hiding in the grass. Xiao Jing's ultimate skill was immune to all crowd control. In addition to his high speed, Shui Yao Yao was lifted into the air with a flick of his spear. Her rain spell was disrupted and she had less than a third of her HP remaining. Xiao Jing still wanted to move forward. Yin Wuyao controlled the mouse and blocked it. He only said one word. Go. In just a few seconds, no matter how fast Qin Mo's support was. Even if Qin Mo was fast enough, he could only prevent Shui Yao Yao from being killed a second time. But Yin Wuyao, who was surrounded by the three of them and had low HP, couldn't be saved. When the special effects of the K.O. sound rang out, every single one of the fans paused for a moment. Because they knew why Uncle Yin had died this time. With Uncle Yin's maneuvering, he could have escaped. But he allowed Shui Yao Yao to leave first. In just 10 minutes, Supreme Alliance had lost 2 lives. The media assumed that Yin Wuyao's death would cause discord between the fans. Just like Yun Hu and Lin Feng. But this time, no one attacked him. Everyone was looking at the screen. It was because they felt how much their idol cherished his teammates. Shui Yao Yao was the most guilty one. She opened her mouth and said, "I'm sorry." Yin Wuyao smiled. In the later stages, you will be more useful than me. Don't think too much, with little captain around, the situation will be balanced. Shui Yao Yao replied, setting off again. In the past, she had always thought that she had trained her hand speed. But after this competition, she realized that she wasn't good enough in other aspects. She didn't know when to switch to the small screen and wasn't sure where to look. But Uncle Yin's maneuvering was smooth. It wasn't just Uncle Yin. Even Coco reacted appropriately at the right time. As for her, Shui Yao Yao moved her right hand. She might be the least skilled, but from now on, she couldn't be a burden anymore. Yao Yao, pay attention to the bushes on the right, someone is there. Qin Mo's voice didn't change at all. Coco, take a step back. Yes. In an instant, Supreme Alliance changed their formation. The shoutcaster was shocked. The middle and bottom lanes have changed? The sorcerer isn't in the middle lane, this is really unpredictable. Even though it wasn't conventional, it wasn't going to be easy for Xiangnan to disturb Qin Mo's jungling. Because of Yin Wuyao's obstructions and skills, it wasn't going to be easy for Xiangnan to send 3 people over. 2 people could do it. But after fighting for half a day, they didn't manage to snatch the blue beasts and were almost stopped by Coco in the top lane. What infuriated Zhao Sanpang the most was that the moment he retreated, Qin Mo said, Thank you for the jungling. Thank you for the jungling. Thank you for the jungling. These 6 words were like a 3-dimensional sound loop, ringing in his ears, causing Zhao Sanpeng to almost spit out blood. But in the end, they weren't the ones who had helped Qin Mo because they were the ones who had taken down half of the blue beast's HP. So this was what Qin Mo had in mind. Shameless, too shameless. How could he use someone else's strategy to trick them? Qin Mo was indeed the ancestor of shamelessness. Attack the tower. Xiao Jing quickly adjusted his strategy. He also found that if they continued to fight like this, it wouldn't be the opponent's rhythm that would be slowed down, but theirs. Qin Mo was really something. Even if his hand was injured, he could still use such a strategy to deal with them. That was interesting. Xiao Jing gave a rare smile. When he appeared on the big screen, the fans of Xiangnan felt a sense of awe. Supreme Alliance seems to be in a better condition. Someone noticed the difference. Indeed. The other team members commented. Both Coco's maneuvering and the new sorcerers are on a whole new level compared to before. It seems to be related to their positioning. That's strange, their awareness has improved so much in such a short period of time. How can Supreme Alliance's members improve so much in a single match? That's impossible. Just as everyone was discussing, Rao Rao narrowed his eyes. Rao Rong, who was sitting in the corner, suddenly narrowed his eyes. He leaned forward, his gaze landing on the man who was controlling the mouse while tilting his head. It's Qin Mo, what? Lin Shintao watched the screen intently, not understanding what his captain was saying. Rao Rong's gaze remained unchanged. Qin Mo is directing them. That can't be. When Lin Shintao heard this, his first reaction was disbelief. After all, an assassin's jungling was all about speed. Not only that, but they also had to constantly be on guard against other players stealing the jungling. Thus, they had to constantly switch between the minimap. This already required a lot of brainpower. If they had to switch between the top and bottom lanes at the same time, then how fast would they have to be and how powerful their thinking ability was? But reality proved that his captain was right. When he glanced in Qin Mo's direction, he was indeed directing. That wasn't all, the movements of his left hand were so fast that it was a blur, not to mention the movements of the mouse in his right hand. Coco, retreat. Second skill, aim. Qin Mo was wearing his headphones. His handsome side profile was illuminated by the light. He looked so noble and inviolable. He controlled the game character to pass through the wall while giving instructions in a calm voice. He looked so calm as though he was doing something normal. But anyone who played games would know that Qin Mo was the only one who could do this. The shoutcaster noticed it too. He gave the director a look, signaling for the camera to zoom in on Qin Mo very quickly. Qin Mo appeared on the screen. The audience could clearly see his thin lips moving. When they looked at his game view, the speed at which he switched between maps was so fast that they couldn't see clearly. On top of that, he was clearing the troops in the middle lane, reducing the pressure on Yin Wuyao. Finally, the troops returned to their original position, not allowing Xiangnan's troops to come over. No wonder he is the most valuable player in the esports scene. Qin Mo won this title because of his ability. With his command, Xiangnan's rhythm is obviously disrupted. He cleared the troops so quickly while directing at the same time. That's impressive. The shoutcaster didn't know what to say, but he could hear the admiration in his voice. Rao Rong didn't have much of a reaction. On the other hand, Lin Shintao sighed. Qin Mo is a pervert. This method of playing is very taxing. Rao Rong continued, but all these years, Xiangnan has only been playing high-end games and has forgotten the reason why Supreme Alliance has been known as the strongest team in the province for such a long time. A large part of it is because of Qin Mo's leadership and coordination. Lin Shintao widened his eyes. Captain, are you saying that Qin Mo has always been like this? Were you the one who quit for a year or was I the one who quit? Rao Rong sounded helpless. Qin Mo started out as an assassin but in the past, he has always been a team controller. In order to coordinate with the team, he changed his best character, isn't that so? Lin Shintao grabbed his hair. I thought all-round players like you would like to play the team controller, so Captain, you are also, the assassin is Qin Mo's life. Rao Rong glanced at him. You haven't seen the Qin Mo from 3 years ago. With a sweep of his long sword, the 3 players from Xiangnan couldn't stop him. In the past 3 years, he has been playing the team controller in order to improve the team's ranking. It wasn't until Spade Z appeared that he started to show signs of his past self. But in today's match, you saw his commanding ability. In fact, Xiangnan has already pushed him back to his previous style. If this continues, Qin Mo won't be able to beat Xiao in the later stages. Lin Shintao's heart sank as he listened to his captain's analysis. He knew that his captain had never made a mistake in his analysis of a battle. Although both sides were his friends, he didn't know why, but he felt that it would be too depressing if this game ended up like this. As expected, in the next second, the sound rang out. Once again, the music played. The tyrant of the jungle was killed by Xiao Jing. Before the Xiangnan fans could cheer, Lin Shintao stood up straight. Lin Shintao bolted upright, his hair standing on end as he hollered at the silver-haired youngster. Little Spade, what exactly are you doing? Where are your jungling skills? Where is the strength you used to shoot our tyrant? Are you still asleep? Lin Shintao's shout was too eye-catching. In that instant, it wasn't just the audience, but also the cameras and the team members turned over. It's Lin Shintao. The resentment in his words is too obvious. After all, the last time Supreme Alliance had fought against them, Spade Z had snatched the kill gun too quickly. Speaking of which, he is encouraging Spade Z. A good friend's way of encouraging is indeed different from others. Why did I see my Big Spade's back tremble just now? With Lin Shintao's volume, Big Spade probably heard it. With so many eyes on him, Lin Shintao regained his rationality. He sat down with a burning face and tilted his head. Captain, don't blame me for embarrassing myself. Rao Rong didn't reply. What else could he say at this moment? Fortunately, he was wearing a mask. The shoutcaster hadn't expected such a situation and tried his best to lead the crowd on the right path. With the tyrant's death, the economic disparity between the two teams widened. It seems like no one can stop Xiao Jing's momentum. It seems like Qin Mo alone can't stop Xiangnan's momentum. This will make it harder for Supreme Alliance to make a comeback. I have to say, the tyrant's kill was beautiful. Supreme Alliance's jungling skills are too far from Xiangnan's. The other teams hadn't said the word yet. Just then, the music broke the silence on the big screen. Only one line of words appeared on it. The Dark Dominator has been killed by Red Spade Z. Chapter 1004. Master? The shoutcaster stuttered. After all, he had just said that Supreme Alliance's jungle wasn't strong enough. Who would have expected that in the next second, Spade Z would kill the biggest boss in the jungle and successfully bring out a wave of flying dragons? The shoutcaster had encountered a player like Spade Z. This was a psychological barrier in his career. After a few moments of stuttering, he managed to smooth things over. Spade Z is indeed the king of the jungle. He's really hard to deal with. He's returning the favor. The spectators from the other teams narrowed their eyes. But how long has it been and Spade Z is already able to solo the king? Look at Spade Z's finances. A sharp-eyed person pointed out the data on the screen. Everyone was stunned. Since when was Spade Z's finances on par with Xiao Jing's? Under normal circumstances, when we talk about a person's hand speed, it doesn't just refer to speed, it also refers to the speed at which he can earn money. In the early stages of hero, it depends on who can earn more money. The richer you are, the better your equipment will be. But the most important factor is time. I don't know if you guys have realized, but Spade Z has his own way of playing in the jungle. Aren't they just normal jungling? No, it's different. What's different? I'm not sure about the specifics. Wait, let's watch the replay. For example, killing the king would definitely be replayed. Especially when it was so unexpected. When they switched to Spade Z's perspective, they realized that the youngster's jungling style was indeed different. He's using his second skill to move around and using normal damage to attack the monsters. How is he so fast? It was indeed fast. Everywhere Spade Z went, regardless of whether it was the monsters or the minions, the youngster's speed was inexplicably faster than the others. Spade Z's skill points seemed to be connected perfectly. It isn't a problem of the skill points. He knows what he can harvest with a normal attack. Then, he would always keep his second skill so that he can jump over the wall to save time. Regardless of whether he was escaping or choosing his next target, his speed and explosive power were maintained at their peak. Spade Z really brought his character to life, treating Xiangnan's wilderness as his own. He could come and go as he pleased. Xiangnan used most of their tactics to restrict Qin Mo, but they underestimated Spade Z. It's mainly Spade Z's jungling style. Why do I feel like I can't learn it? This jungling style looks a little familiar. Is that so? It's the first time I've seen such a jungler, and he's always avoiding Xiao Jing. I don't think it's a coincidence. Ah. I remember now. Where have I seen such a jungler before? Where? Indeed, there were people who were curious. Back then, when Qin Mo fought against the Xiangnan three gods, he used such a jungling style. Back then, even though Supreme Alliance was strong, the others were still a distance away from Xiangnan. However, Qin Mo managed to balance the gap. Back then, no one could stop Qin Mo. After his hand was injured, such a jungling style was never seen again in the esports arena. He didn't leave any empty moves, and with every step he took, he either increased his speed or dealt damage. His jungling speed was obviously 2 times faster than the others. I tried it before, wondering if I should learn from that match. In the end, I realized such a jungling style isn't something anyone can do. First, you have to have a map in your mind and you have to constantly change the map to analyze the situation. When the opponent isn't paying attention, you have to use the fastest method to deal damage. You also have to have precise positioning and fast hand speed. Most importantly, you have to have a strategy. I originally thought such a jungling style would never appear again, but I never expected to see it from Spade Z. Xiangnan miscalculated. They shouldn't just be defending against Qin Mo. Xiao Jing noticed the problem as well. He narrowed his eyes. Sanpang, keep an eye on Spade Z, alright. Zhao Sanpang led his team around the river, intending to stop Bojiu, who was about to head over. He didn't expect that he was ready to give the young man a horizontal slash. Seeing that the young man was about to reach his side, he suddenly jumped to the side, went to the bottom lane to collect a wave of minions, and wasted his big move for nothing. Captain, little Spade is like a loach, he runs the moment he sees me. Run? Bojiu lifted her thin lips. Right at this moment, she suddenly turned back, using her second skill to pierce through the wall. Zhao Sanpang was lifted into the air, a series of explosive attacks. F***CK, Zhao Sanpang cursed. His left hand moved agilely, but he still wasn't able to avoid the attack. Fortunately, Goddess Luoluo had rushed over to help. If not, he would have lost his second HP. Little Spade, you're really too cunning. When Goddess Luoluo spoke, there was a hint of a smile in her voice. However, the sniper rifle in her hands wasn't slow at all. She attacked the silver-white figure ferociously. With such strong firepower and the sorcerer who came to help, many people's hearts were in their mouths. Many people's hearts were in their throats, thinking that Spade Z would be encircled. Bojiu didn't have much HP left. Ever since she had appeared, she hadn't returned home to heal. She had been farming in the wilderness. Right at this moment, a figure in white swept across the middle lane. With a sweep of his long sword, an electric formation rose. The 2 members of Xiangnan were trapped in the middle. They were slowed down and attacked. Only Qin Mo was able to set up such a formation. Come back. Xiao Jing wasn't late. Luo Luo used her agility to move and dodge to the bottom of the tower. However, the sorcerer from Xiangnan wasn't as fast. He used up his flash, but in the next second, Spade Z turned around and lifted him into the air. Freeze. Qin Mo's voice was calm. Yes. Shui Yaoyao's skill was executed at the right time. The audience watched as the white figure leaped an inch forward. With a big move, Scar of the White Dragon. The silver light scattered and 2 words appeared in the middle of the screen. K.O. 2v2, the score was tied once again. Bo Jiu was the one who took the HP. However, Qin Mo's interference and Shui Yaoyao's freeze were crucial in this ambush. Xiangnan was fast. Especially Xiao Jing, who had come through the wall in order to finish off the low HP Spade Z. But it was obvious that Bo Jiu's alertness towards danger was extremely high. Hence, after the kill, she used her second skill to lift up and walk back, using the beasts to replenish her HP. Even Xiao Jing wouldn't head towards the wilderness where the 3 of them were gathered. Supreme Alliance fought beautifully this round. With the Flying Dragon as the trigger, it won't be easy for Xiangnan to start a battle in the wilderness. If they only look at the wilderness, they will definitely lose the defense tower. It won't be worth it. Spade Z's Beast King played at the right time, bringing up the tempo. That's right. Just as they were discussing this, another sound was heard. The top player, Coco, was dead and Supreme Alliance had lost a defense tower. The score was pulled apart by another point. Supreme Alliance's fans widened their eyes, unable to understand why Coco had died when they had the upper hand. When they watched the replay, they realized a crucial point. Big Spade's finances were indeed comparable to Xiao Jing's, but the other Supreme Alliance members' finances were far behind Xiangnan's. Even Qin Mo was the same. This meant that Supreme Alliance hadn't shaken off their slow pace. The situation hadn't changed. Even if they had a similar number of players, it wouldn't change anything. Supreme Alliance's top lane is about to collapse, Rao Rong said. The moment Rao Rong finished, Xiangnan's players reached the second defense tower. Everyone knew that in most professional leagues, the collapse of the top lane meant the collapse of the entire team. The people who had been saying that Xiangnan didn't care about Spade Z were now silent. Because they quickly understood one thing. Xiangnan's goal had been clear from the start. They wanted to suppress Qin Mo. After the joint attack in the middle and jungle, they wanted to destroy the top lane. From the start of the competition until now, Qin Mo had only fought one blue beast. Now that the top lane had collapsed, it was going to be harder to farm for blue beasts. An assassin without blue beasts was basically useless. It seems like the National League is about to end. Yu Cixin tapped the side of his face with his fingers and turned to smile at the person beside him. Hoshino, the person you like isn't bad, but Spade Z doesn't seem to understand something. When a teammate can't keep up with his pace, he has to wait. Otherwise, he will still end up in failure. Hoshino frowned, glancing at the youngster who was moving the mouse. His fingers tightened. Yu Cixin pointed at the screen. Qin Mo's speed is much slower than before. If I'm not wrong, there's something wrong with his hands. It was probably because of Yu Cixin's action. As a special guest and one of the top experts in Asia, the moment he opened his mouth, the cameras had already turned towards him. Even his words were transmitted to the audience through the equipment. There's something wrong with your hand? What does that mean? God blesses judgment is usually accurate, but this sentence. Does it mean that Almighty Qin's hand injury hasn't healed? Still not recovered? It can't be. Everyone saw Almighty Qin's moves just now. How could his hand not have recovered from that kind of speed? Lin Feng didn't believe it either, but when he turned over and saw Yunhu's side profile, his fingers tightened. Captain's hand injury really hasn't recovered? I'm not sure. Yunhu's voice was a little low. But this is the first time I've seen someone snatch the beasts from Captain. Captain's speed is indeed slow. Perhaps only Boss Feng knows what the problem is. Yunhu's words caused baby Feng to turn towards Feng Yi. Bro, Captain, didn't he go to America to be healed? Feng Yi didn't speak, but that was precisely because he didn't speak. In an instant, baby Feng understood what Feng Yi meant. Captain's hand indeed hadn't recovered. Bro, what exactly is going on? Feng Yi glanced at the elegant and aloof figure in front of the computer. His sitting posture was as reassuring as ever, as though as long as he sat there, he would be able to see hope. This had never changed ever since he joined the Supreme Alliance. At the start, he killed every god he met. No matter how low the situation was, he could turn defeat into victory. When he walked out from the thousands of silver lights, even his cloak would be swept up. With a loud bang, no one could stop him. After his hand injury, he was willing to give up his assassin character to cooperate with the rest of the team. If it wasn't for Qin Mo, would Supreme Alliance still be a strong team in the province? This was a question without an answer. At that time, after the Supreme Alliance lost, many players changed teams. Only Yun Hu was left who could barely keep up with Qin Mo's speed. At that time, Yun Hu and Lin Feng weren't as independent as they were now. Especially Lin Feng, who was still a newbie. But because of that man, Supreme Alliance had never been able to come down from the clouds. Just how many things were on his body? Feng Yi couldn't finish his sentence, but there was one thing he had to say. In the previous finals, after Supreme Alliance lost, he was worried, especially when Supreme Alliance was caught in the internet storm. With the subsequent opponents, Supreme Alliance wouldn't have been able to reach the finals with just their lineup. Hence, he gave up on the last part of the treatment and chose to return to China. Before he came, the doctor had also told him to relax his wrist and not to use it as frequently as before. Especially the 3000 knife cutting, which tested the strength of his wrist, it was best not to use it again. Otherwise, his hand might be crippled. But in order for Supreme Alliance to win, he never thought about not being able to play games in the future. When baby Feng heard the last sentence, his expression changed, his eyes turning red. Lin Feng stood up, grabbing a handful of hair. What do you mean by not being able to play games? On the surface. Feng Yi looked into his teammate's eyes. His hand has never recovered. At this moment, there was a commotion from the audience. There was a hint of confusion in the voice. Look, what's going on? When they heard the commotion, Lin Feng and the others looked over. When their eyes met the youngster, they were shocked. Someone asked in confusion, why did Spade Z stop? You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.